when being child-free gets you an extra 40 hours per week of work. I need a place to rent, and I'm so grateful for having this sub. I'm also using a throwaway for privacy reasons, as I'm about to throw shade. Background: I work for a huge corporation and am a salaried employee. Relevant later. My job is very project-based, and each employee works on their own projects most of the time. Today, our department manager booked a team meeting to discuss upcoming changes. Cool, no problem. At this meeting, we're presented with a memo outlining the changes in hours to be worked for November, possibly longer, as follows. Mandatory 8 to 8 workdays every day, including Saturdays, Sundays if possible, if deemed necessary, except for team members who have children. Their hours will remain 9 to 5 Monday to Friday. Manager finishes going over this and asks, "Any questions?" "Yes, I have a question. In what world did you think that this would be okay?" She explains that due to the situation in the last few months, we've fallen behind in projects as team members have to take care of their kids and work at the same time, so we have to pick up the slack. I ask again, based on our status meeting yesterday, the team members without kids are all on track with their projects, with many of us consistently finishing days before our deadlines. So are you telling me that those of us who don't have kids have to work an additional 40 hours a week to complete projects for team members who won't even be helping finish the said projects? She responds with, "I'm struggling to understand why this is such a big issue for you." Excuse me, what? I ask my fellow child-free team members if they're okay with this. All of them say no. The ones with kids are completely silent, of course. I tell her that it's absolutely insane that she thinks this is even close to being okay. She just blinks at me. Then I ask her if she'll also be working these hours with us. Of course, it's a no. She has a child. A frickin' 18-year-old, mind you. I was ready to throw my laptop through the window at this point. She then just ends the meeting. I'm fuming. I regroup with my fellow child-free team, and we agree that this isn't about to happen. I email the manager right after to let her know that we will be requesting a meeting with HR and the legal departments to discuss our employment contracts and hours we're being forced to work simply because we don't have kids. I know damn well that this is frickin' insane and against all employment policies within the company. She proceeds to call me and tell me there is no need to go to HR and legal, and we can resolve this internally. But no, we can't. You dismissed me and didn't even bother to listen to 12 other team members that you plan to work to death without any sort of additional compensation. She then says, well, you're salaried, so there's no need for additional compensation. If only I had the ability to choke her through the phone. I collect myself and tell her, in the most professional way that I could muster, that we can discuss this with the HR and legal, and I end the call. I proceeded to book a meeting with my child-free team, manager, and HR/legal for tomorrow. In the meantime, I'm downing a bottle of wine to calm myself. I might end up unemployed tomorrow, but I'm not letting this go. This is the hill I will die on. End rant. In the comments, she doesn't have a child either if her child is 18. I hope she gets fired and you get promoted. Edit to add, make sure that you told her that you tried to address this internally, but she ignored your and everybody else's complaints at the meeting and then ended the meeting. Later, she tried to discourage you from going to HR, which is set up exactly for this purpose. So you've lost confidence in her ability to manage a team. Yes, she has illegal adults. Call me an asshole, but a teenager can already manage their time if you taught them correctly how to do it by giving them routines early on and integrating them in some decisions so they get a feel for it. Yet somehow, everyone here with a child, teenager, or young adult gets treated as if their child is so young that they need constant supervision. How very convenient. If HR and other proper methods don't work, how about the whole group do work really slow or not at all? Then let's see who will pick up the slack. Yes, just pretend to work until after you all find new jobs, then who's gonna do all the extra work? What I don't understand is, if the employees with kids already worked 9 to 5, then what the hell does having kids have to do with this? Is it just an excuse to why they suck at their job and can't complete their work during normal work hours? Why do the child-free people need to work an additional 4 hours a day to make up for the work the parents didn't do during their normal workday when they don't have their kids? As someone who works in hiring and with HR, come prepared. Do not come to rant. Come with either meeting notes or your email thread. Also, come with exactly what she was requesting and why by showing who is on this extra work team and who is not, and the difference. Come showing how many extra hours a week this would be and how much overall versus the child team. And show your progress in your projects versus the child team. If they are competent corporate HR, this is the way to get a serious outcome. And now, onto the update. Before I get into the good stuff, I need to say thank you to everyone who commented, awarded, and DM'd me on my original post. I was baffled by the number of comments this morning. Y'all are amazing. I've been reading your comments throughout the day, but couldn't respond as the post was locked, per the mod, post exceeded number of comments limit. Some users asked what I do for work. I have to give a vague answer to this for privacy reasons. I work in the regulatory compliance department, and our job is to monitor and enforce internal policies and laws and regulations at all levels within the company. Almost everyone requested an update, so I really hope this lives up to the hype. The meeting took place first thing this morning with the manager, head of HR, another HR manager, 2 labor law attorneys from the legal department, head of my department, legal invited him on the fly this morning, and 13 child-free employees, 12 co-workers, and me. I started the meeting by explaining why we have gathered here today. Head of my department was dumbfounded. He clearly had no idea what the manager tried to pull. Legal went through the rules of discussion, wait your turn to speak and such. I was the first to make my case, and my approach was simple. Show proof, show policy, explain why the policy was violated and therefore can't be enforced. Boring! Yes, I know, but if that didn't work, I had other points on reserve to bring up. Side note, I really wanted to go out and lose my filter and say what I was really thinking, but as we know, that would get me nowhere. So I presented the manager's memo and company's overtime policy, which clearly states that mandatory overtime must be 1. Mandatory for all members of the department, hourly and salaried. 2. All members must work equal numbers of OT hours. 3. Must be approved by the head of the department. If any of these conditions are not met, management can't impose it and should ask for volunteers to work overtime instead. My argument was simple. Managers didn't follow the policy and purposefully targeted the child freeze. Highlights of the crap show that followed. Legal asked head of my department if he approved the memo. Answer was an angry no. I could tell he was livid at the manager. In my head, I'm laughing my ass off. Legal asks manager for her side of the story. Answer, I wasn't aware of this policy. I interject with, I find that hard to believe when 3 weeks ago we did an extensive review with that policy being the main objective and you were heavily involved with each step. Head of HR chimes in with, I can attest to that. I worked with the manager on this project. Let's be truthful, please. In my head, I'm screaming, take that, beer. Manager says, well, I didn't think policy would apply in this case. Y'all, it took all my willpower not to cuss her out. All of a sudden, her memory came back, and now she's aware of the policy? Legal stepped in with, are you saying that you, the manager responsible for enforcing policies, honestly thought that those same policies don't apply to you? Ah, yes! Head of my department stepped in with, to manager, still angry AF, you were blatantly wrong here. There is no need to try to justify it. This is obviously very summarized, but the gist is there. Round 1 was a win. Next were some of the child frees who shared emails between them and her, showing your standard shitty manager behaviors and lack of accountability. She just kept repeating, that's not why we're here today. It didn't stop them from going on though. This was very enjoyable to watch. Then, one of the other child frees asked to speak, and let me tell you, this guy showed up with receipts. He spent the entire night creating an analysis, frickin' pie charts and all, to illustrate how many projects were done by the 13 child frees as compared to the 19 non-child frees. how much time was put in by us versus them, how much vacation/sick time was approved for us versus them for the last year. I was shook. His analysis showed that 13 of us did close to 60% of all the work, while 19 of them did 40-ish. Don't even get me started on the rest of the stats. This guy wiped the floor with the manager. I hope he gets a raise because he's my hero. Her response? This company promotes work-life balance and wants families to have time to spend with each other, so it's normal that the employees with kids get time to do just that. I couldn't hold back. I said, yes, you're absolutely right that the company does that. What you're lacking here is the understanding that family includes other people, not just children. In case you are unaware, all of us have families too. HR interjected with, I believe we have enough information here. The child frees, myself included, were asked to leave the meeting so they can deliberate, and we were told they'll circle back with us later in the afternoon. Later comes around, and we're invited to a meeting. This time it's all the same people, but no manager. Head of my department apologized that this ever happened, thanked us for doing the right thing and bringing it to their attention, threw in a few lines about equal treatment, yada yada, and told us he will be taking over the manager duties for the time being. Legal added that the memo is null and void, and made it clear that we will not be working those insane hours. In case you're wondering, the manager was offline for the rest of the day. We don't know what happened there, but who cares? We won. In the comments, I find it hilariously ironic that you're in a regulatory compliance department and your manager tried to pull this. Frickin' wow. I sincerely hope she was fired, and I'm glad you guys won't be doing that overtime. Also, that guy who came prepped with charts and stats is an MVP. OP replies, you know, the irony didn't hit me until this morning after the initial anger wore off. She's something else. I'm also somewhat amused that the math worked out that 40% of the people did 60% of the work. Maybe charts and graphs homie can be the new manager. That's probably true at a lot of jobs. All it takes is a few superstars who shift the bell curve to a 60-40 split. But to see it drawn so neatly on the child-free/breeder line is remarkable. I'm certain that manager has been cutting the breeders way too much slack for too long. I could scream about the work-life balance comment. So child-free people don't deserve a work-life balance? We don't have a life because we use protection while having sex? Exactly. It's a work-life balance, not a work-children balance. And now onto the final update. So it's been about a month since the whole situation took place. This will be a short update, as I'll focus on what majority who read the original post/update wanted to know. 1. Did the manager get fired? Answer, no. However, she is no longer a manager in my group. She was transferred to a non-managerial position in a different department. 2. Did pie chart/stats guy get promoted? Answer, again, no. But I hear that the company has a promotions freeze in place until the end of year, so there is still hope. The manager position remains open. I know this is not too exciting of an update, but I didn't want to leave the story unfinished. I hope everyone is doing well and staying safe. In the comments, I had a boss straight up tell me that she was making me work late on the holidays because I didn't have a family. Back in my retail days, I knew how to play the game and put my requests for holidays in way ahead of time. And then I could use those days off as leverage for other things I wanted. Oh, you want Halloween to trick-or-treat with your kid? Yeah, I can trade shifts with you, but you'll need to swap it with my Friday so I can have a long weekend without PTO. I'm confused how this was even allowed to happen in the first place. This is clearly illegal. It's illegal to discriminate based on civil status. That includes being single/married with kids. Lots of illegal stuff gets done in the workplace. It just never gets reported because people either don't care, need the job, or they get paid extra. I found out why my husband hides his best friend from me, and I don't think there's anything I can do about it. I, 26 female, have been married to my husband Dylan, 26 male, for 3 years. We got together when we were 17, but we've known each other since the 4th grade. I love my husband, he is the total package. Funny, sweet, smart, and attractive. He's made my life amazing, and he is who I fully intend on spending the rest of my life with. We attended all the same schools from the time we met up until college. In that time, we've both made our own friend groups. He's been more connected with his friends than I have, and because of that, I've become a part of the group as well, I'd like to think. In that time, I've been at around 50% of their group hangouts, mostly because of my job, but sometimes I'm just straight up not invited. I didn't question any of this because hey, they're his friends. He doesn't see them nearly as often as he sees me, and it's not my business. My husband met his friend Caro, 27 male, long before he met me. I knew almost nothing about Caro up until recently. He wasn't at our wedding, nor did he attend any of the same schools as us, and I was under the impression he wasn't friends with anyone in our group. I thought all of this was because of his line of work, as I was told that he traveled a lot. Last year, me and my husband went to a barbecue hosted by another couple in the group. Caro was there. I didn't recognize him at first, but when I realized who he was, I was honestly kind of shocked. I'd seen him in person before, but he always kept a very, very good distance from me, which I'm realizing now was intentional. Anyways, he's totally stunning. He looks like he could be a supermodel. When I attempted to make conversation with him, he seemed really nervous and totally shut me down after a few sentences. When I mentioned this behavior to anyone else, they also shut me down, saying things like, "That's just how he is," or "Maybe you said something that offended him." In short, no one would tell me anything about Caro at all. Any conversation that involved him was a no-go. At the end of that night, I tried talking to Dylan about his behavior. He told me that Caro didn't like me. I was confused because I'd hardly seen him in person at all, let alone actually talk to him. The excuse my husband gave was that he disliked me because I cheated on my husband once in college, and Caro was too stubborn to let it go. I've seen Caro less than a dozen times since then, mostly at birthday parties, huge get-togethers, and on one occasion he came to our house to watch a football game with my husband and a few of their other buddies. Anyways, a few weeks ago my husband went fishing with his cousin. That same night, I had some of the girls in our friend group over for a girls' night type thing. Lily, 24 female, was scrolling through some social media. I was glancing over her shoulder when I saw a selfie of Dylan and Caro sitting next to each other in a hot tub. The selfie had been posted maybe 30 minutes ago. I asked Lily about what I had seen, and she went pale. She tried saying nothing, but I snatched the phone from her and went to the profile that posted the photo. The profile belonged to my husband. It was a private profile, and scrolling through the photos, most of them were dirty jokes or memes, but the rest of them were photos of him and Caro. Either they were hanging out alone or with the rest of the group minus me. Most of the photos, they seemed way too close, too touchy, or doing things that seemed too personal or intimate for friends to be doing. I spent a good 10 minutes looking before I couldn't take it anymore. I was horrified. All the photos were dated to nights that my husband told me he was working late, hanging out with his relatives, or times that he told me he was doing something else, and obviously hangouts I wasn't invited to. Lily just sat there looking dumb. She didn't say anything, but all the girls were looking at us like a bomb had just gone off. They clearly knew what I had seen, and their reactions were enough to confirm exactly what I was afraid of. I was livid. I started yelling. Lily was crying, and the rest of the girls were freaking out. When I started to calm down and demanded that they explain what was going on, Lily told me everything. Dylan and Caro had been sleeping together and very essentially dating behind my back since before we even got married. They got together during a 1-month break that me and Dylan had during college, and they stuck together ever since. They all knew, and none of them told me until I found out the hard way. Caro wasn't at our wedding because he felt guilty. He avoided me like the frickin' plague because he felt guilty. They arranged group meetups in a group chat that I wasn't in because they all liked Caro enough to spare his feelings. Even the guys in the group felt the same way about him apparently. Caro was never as distant as I thought he was just being hidden. Dylan was hiding from me because he didn't want me to find out that they were together. By the end of it, half of us were sobbing and everyone who wasn't was apologizing to me. I was so angry. I made them swear they wouldn't say anything to Dylan or anyone else. I kicked them all out and cried myself to sleep. I was basically in denial like it was some kind of sick effing prank. My husband didn't come home until the next morning. He told me all about the supposed fishing trip he'd went on. I didn't say anything about what I knew. I guess he could tell something was up because he kept asking me what was wrong all day, every 5 effing minutes. Eventually, I just told him I'd been in an argument with my sister. By the end of the week, I was totally numb. Last night, while my husband was handing out candy to kids, I saw a notification pop up on his phone. Since I knew his password, I opened it. It was a text from Caro. I looked through the conversations they'd had, and it confirmed everything. It was devastating. Dylan texted Caro the exact same way he texted me. He told Caro that he loved him. Every sweet thing that he said to me had been said in his conversations with Caro. I was hardly mentioned. I put his phone back before he noticed. Dylan is at work now. I don't know what to do. I could never imagine myself leaving Dylan because he's such a loving partner and a good man, but I can't see myself winning in a competition against Caro if that's what it comes down to. I can't even make myself be disgusted or angered by Dylan. I love him too much. I'm not even upset with Caro, but I'm so hurt. I don't want to risk losing my husband, and I don't want to share him. I called Lily and my sister this morning and told them about what I had found. They both asked what I'm going to do, and I had nothing to say. I don't know what to do at all. In the comments, this is devastating. They all lied. They all betrayed you and stood by and said nothing while they all knew. He knew, yet married you anyway. It's all a scam. I am so sorry. This is multi-layers of betrayal. He's having a full-blown affair. Leave. Also, your friends suck. How long have they known? Were they happy for you to be in an open relationship without you knowing? Disgusting. Those were never OP's friends. No friend would let that go on for 3 years without telling their friend. Also, how horrible is it that they were willing to spare Caro's feelings, but were totally okay lying to OP for that long? This made me sick to my stomach. They've known since before the wedding. Everyone has lied to her. OP, respectfully, you have no good friends or a good husband. I'm sorry. You've been betrayed by everyone around you, literally, for 3+ years. Your husband can be a good man, but he hasn't been a good man to you. I know that you don't want to hear this, and I know you will disagree, but what man can lie to the woman he loves and everyone around them carry this facade? If you were my friend or sibling, I would honestly start swinging for you. For everyone to view you as the butt of the joke, know, and have access to the secret profile to keep hanging out with you like nothing? This is literally insane. Like, you were the side chick in their lives, and they kept it up because they liked him. WTF. Screw their crocodile tears BS. They weren't crying for 3+ years. They went to your wedding day like nothing, and then when you started asking questions, they lied. You are the victim here, love. No one else. Please take care of yourself. Find a good support system and start cutting people off when you're ready. I'm sending you big hugs. I'm sorry doesn't even cover this. And now on to the update. Hi, I really appreciate the support and advice I was given on my last post. Dylan came home last night at around 10. I had a whole speech prepared to confront him with, but I could only end up saying, I know about you and Caro. I'll spare the details of the conversation because it's still raw, but he left around midnight. He only took a few of his things. I haven't spoken to him since, aside from him telling me he was coming to get more of his things, and after our conversation, I've decided to go through with divorce. I've collected all the necessary information, and I'll be getting in touch with a lawyer shortly. Again, thank you for all the advice and help to come to my senses. In the comments, next step, dump those dreadful friends. Don't forget to cut every single friend off. They effing set up meetings without you so they could be a cute, happy couple. F all of them. Best of luck to you. I wish you all the best. I'm so sorry. Do remember to get a full panel STD test. I just came from the first post. I am so proud of you for doing what is best for you. After spending so much time with one person, it can be hard to move on, but please, trust and believe that the life that you thought you had with him is out there, with a real, loving, genuine person who will make you feel like you deserve the world, to make you feel like there is no possibility to even have eyes on anyone else. The passion and love that I see shining from you through these posts is beautiful. Protect it. Guard it with your life, because everyone will want some of it. Save it for yourself right now. Give yourself compassion and grace. These are the things my therapist tells me with every struggle I experience. Best of luck. You are stronger than you know, and it isn't until we are forced to use our strength that we see how much we really have. Sending all my love. WTF? Did he even try to win you back? I'm so sorry you're going through this. Remember, you don't want anyone who doesn't want you. You want someone who will make you a priority in your life. These things can be tough though, so just do your best. I hope your heart heals in due time so you can get back to finding the love you deserve. Second, and hopefully last update. I was unaware that it was a big trend to repost Reddit posts onto TikTok. This is what happened with my first post, and the video has almost 700,000 views. A friend of mine, Noah, who I'm name dropping because I know he will see this, and I appreciate him dearly, forwarded me the video because he knew that it was my post. I explained the situation to him prior, and he knew that I had posted it. There are several things that I want to address, and I ask that whoever made the video, because they clearly use Reddit, posts this too to clear my name. Everybody in my life knows by now, so I see no harm in addressing you personally. To recap, yes, I am leaving Dylan. No, I did not actually cheat on him. It was a huge misunderstanding between the two of us that led him to believe and tell people that I cheated. I don't even know if what he told me about Caro's dislike for me is or was true. No, I'm not going to sue him for everything he has. I will no longer be speaking to anyone from that group. I may have been naive, but I am not stupid. No, I still do not know why they chose to betray me like that, and I don't intend on finding out. Yes, while his parents were accepting of LGBTQ+, I don't think they would have been okay with Dylan marrying a man. From here on out, I doubt I will have anything to say. That is all. Thank you. Also, I've never watched Brokeback Mountain, but the jokes about it did make me chuckle. In the comments, I don't understand these people. Why go to such lengths to hide a whole other relationship? Is one not enough, or do they get a kick out of effing with people? Also, OP's friends are shitty friends. F them. It's so awful that such a big group of people all hid it from her, and were friendly to her face. Like, why did they not all encourage OP's husband to just tell her the truth and leave her if they all loved him and Caro together so much? How did not even one of them clue her in? How can so many people all fail to be decent human beings? So gross. What makes me mad is that the friends probably soothed their consciences by thinking, this had nothing to do with me, I'm not going to get involved. They're in denial that they've been involved since they hid this from OP and even had a special group chat. I hope OP burns all of the bridges and starts fresh with some actual decent friends. I'm actually surprised that they filled her in after being flat out caught out rather than spinning some ridiculous yarn about it, after the amount of effort they put into hiding it all that time. I feel so bad for OP, but at least she knows what kind of people they all are now. That entire friend circle sucks. I can't fathom being the butt end of a joke for years. Being in 2 different group chats, knowing Dylan is regularly with Caro, that's exhausting. I wouldn't even want to be friends with Dylan, Caro, or anyone who chooses to tolerate that. Poor OP. All I could think of while reading this was, F those friends, F every single one of those assholes. They were happily sitting in OP's house, enjoying her hospitality, knowing her husband was off with his lover, while she thought that he was with a cousin. They thought that this was perfectly okay to hide from her for years, so they don't hurt the other person's feelings. I don't understand how there were just that many people totally happy leading double lives around OP and her husband for years. Completely happy assisting his years-long affair, completely happy to go to their wedding and pretend that it's all good and normal. Our next post is titled, "My ex-husband and his new wife made my daughter a back brace out of wood and steel and forced her to wear it. My daughter is 9 and we share custody by alternating weeks. My daughter says her back hurts now and her arm is tingling. I have a doctor's appointment for her on Monday, and in the meantime, I'm trying to remain calm. I confronted my ex-husband about it, and all he would say was one text message where he says his new wife didn't like how my daughter slouched at the dinner table. They aren't doctors, and there's nothing wrong with her that she needs a brace. I frickin' want to kill both of them. Is there a way that I can get a quick court date or see a judge? Because I don't want her going back there. When we divorced, it took a long time to figure out custody. Edit. Sorry, the location is the state of Florida. I'm so mad I'm having a hard time focusing." In the comments, there is something called an ex-parte motion that you could file. They are emergency motions that you get before a judge the same day you file. Your local family court should have a form for it. Whether your facts merit such a filing is completely up to you. OP replies, "Thank you. I'll go to the courthouse tomorrow and ask them about it." Your divorce lawyer, if you have maintained a relationship or like them, should be in on this. Report this to Child Protective Services. They may take this far more seriously than the police. One hand washes the other. In my experience, either agency will involve the other if need be. While I upvoted the advice to call the police, it wouldn't have been my first stop. OP said they blew her off. It's just a middleman. Even if they took a report and were compelled to contact CPS, she could just contact CPS if need be. You want the cops to make an arrest? This isn't an assault that they're going to arrest anyone for. If CPS tells the DA there is abuse, they still probably won't order an arrest. CPS only needs to suspect there is abuse to act. Police need evidence of abuse to act. When it comes to child protection, CPS has more authority than the police force. And now, on to the updates. Firstly, I would like to thank everyone for all the support in my first post and all the supportive PMs I received. It was really overwhelming, in a good way. A few people asked for an update, so here it is. So, a lot has happened since I first posted. I called into work while I was trying to get all this sorted. One of my coworkers has a cousin who is a lawyer, and she knew someone who was able to help me and file the paperwork. My husband played dumb in court, but his visits got reduced to supervised, and he was ordered to take a parenting class. My daughter went to physiotherapy. Eventually, the court reinstated his visitation when he swore that he had learned his lesson and was sorry, and with his otherwise clean record, the court agreed. I was against it, but the court ruled against me. I gave my daughter her own cell phone so she could call me whenever she needed to. On her second visit, it happened again. This time, the brace had steel and fabric instead of wood, and they took her phone too. The next night, she left when they weren't looking and went up the street to a neighbor who was a police officer. The neighbor called paramedics and her co-workers. They had to cut the brace off my daughter. My husband and his wife were arrested, and they got out quickly, but they've been charged, and their infant is with CPS. My ex lost visitation and custody, and I'm working on making it permanent. Unfortunately, my daughter's shoulder was dislocated from the brace. It set back her rehab, and part of her arm is still numb and tingling. She needed surgery and is still recovering. She always played sports, especially at school, and did dance, but the doctor thinks that she won't ever be able to lift her arm all the way up again. I hate my ex, and he'll see her again over my frickin' dead body. Right now, I'm focusing on my daughter while my lawyer takes care of things. That's my update. In the comments, can you imagine being the neighbor and answering the door to a kid in a torture device? I'm so glad she either knew the neighbor could help or just got lucky that they could. Theoretically, I'm sure anyone could, but they would have a quicker line to help. I mean, how scary. I sincerely hope that any person opening the door to a child locked in a torture device would do the same. If a child showed up at my door saying, "I need help because my parents hurt me," there isn't anything in the entire world that stops me from taking them in, comforting them, and calling the police. I don't understand how someone could be so evil to someone they're supposed to love unconditionally, especially after the first time. It's absolutely on purpose. They made a steel back brace and forced her to wear it for slouching. The cost and energy required to build that means the pain and injury were on purpose. You can purchase a fabric harness for $10 for help with posture. Not that I agree with either, just pointing out the sheer psychopathic intent behind their actions. They literally engineered and crafted a torture device, and then repeated the process. I have no words. And then the court gave them normal visits again after that. Just think about it. My husband is considering conceiving a child with his ex. I'll preface this with the fact that therapy is an absolute given already, so I will be seeking that out. But in the meantime, I need some advice to just process what to even say to a therapist when the time comes. Okay, so the title needs explanation because it's a complicated and nuanced emotional situation. Apologies in advance for rambling. I'm still trying to make sense of the entire situation while grieving and just trying to get the pertinent details out for advice. My husband and I have been happily married for 3 years now. My husband had a son from a previous relationship before we got together. I had been in my stepson's life since he was 2 years old. He turned 6 years old this year and got along very well. My stepson's bio mom, BM, and I have never been friends in any capacity, but have always been cordial and respectful on the rare times that we interacted and never had any issues with one another. My husband and BM are similarly cordial and respectful, and are communicative around their son's needs, but not really friends beyond that. We pretty much adhered to a parallel parenting style, and it worked fine. 4 weeks ago, my stepson tragically and very suddenly died from an infection. It has been just absolutely devastating for everyone. BM is especially just wrecked. Her son was literally her entire life and purpose as a stay-at-home single mom. My grief cannot compare to the level that I know she feels, and I do have compassion for that. My husband is of course also exceptionally distraught. I've been doing my best to be understanding in how they both need to grieve as parents. 2 days ago, my husband said that he had something that he needs to discuss with me, and he explained that BM approached him with a request. She asked my husband to be her sperm donor for IUI/IVF, as she desperately wants to be a mum again and wants to conceive a child with the same partner that her son had. He basically made it clear that it is something that he is willing, even wanting to do, but knows that he needs to understand how I feel about it. Well, I don't know how to exactly communicate what I feel about it at this point, but the feelings are not good ones. I told him that I need some time to process this. My husband and I have been trying to have a child of our own for the past few months, so this is even more personally difficult for me to take in. I think I already know that I am not okay with my husband having another child with his ex, but I'm thinking of suggesting that we offer her financial support to seek out alternative fertility options that do not involve my husband's sperm, and quite honestly, do not involve 18 years of co-parenting. I'm actually not even sure what BM and my husband are thinking regarding that in this scenario. Additionally, BM is 41 years old, so there is a high probability this whole situation would be a lot of money and time spent without any results. Overall, I think I'm just in shock here. I feel disrespected and angry, but I also understand that it's not really just about me here, and that both of them are struggling to cope with this unimaginable grief. I would just appreciate some level of advice from people outside this situation, specifically advice on how I should convey that I am not on board with this without making it a point of contention. Now in the comments, BM is trying to have another son just 4 weeks after her son died? That sounds like she's simply trying to bury her grief by replacing her dead son. This is not healthy, and your husband cannot enable her. If he's going to do anything for her, it should be to help her find grief counseling. Yeah, this is the big thing that stands out to me. This whole situation is really fresh. Everyone is grieving. No one is in the right headspace. Now is not the time to be making these types of decisions, especially when it impacts multiple families and a potential child. If I were OP, I would honestly ask for some time to think about it, with the assumption that in every few weeks/months, everyone will come to the realization that this is a bad idea that was triggered by a very emotional situation, and OP won't have to say no and deal with the whole fallout. Yeah, this is a big no. There are so many emotions here, and during times of grief, they might not be thinking rationally, but having another child to replace one you all lost is not the answer here. I think the first step is couples counseling with your husband, where you state that you aren't comfortable with him fathering a child with another woman while you're undergoing your own journey together. Best leave the bit about age/viability out, that you think that it would impact your marriage. Then the intricacies of co-parenting said child would also make you uncomfortable. It's terrible that you're all going through this, and I hope that you can heal in a healthy way. The mother and your husband are definitely not thinking rationally. I also lost a child, and during that time, I thought that I wanted to have another with my then husband because the hole in my heart and life was immense. My marriage was also very much at a conclusion, but I just wasn't able to process two tragedies at once. Your husband and his ex-wife need time to process the death of their child. This will take years, but at least in a few years they might be able to rationalize on what makes sense moving forward. My hope is that the ex finds love again and is able to start a family in a healthy, mindful way. Back up to the post, we have an edit. Thank you so much already for the responses. I feel like this is something happening to someone else. It is such a shocking and emotional wave after wave, very difficult to process and think totally rationally. I honestly consider understanding and compassion to be personal strengths of mine, so I appreciate the replies acknowledging that I'm not betraying that by being a firm no on facilitating this situation. I would just add that I'm fortunate to be financially stable independently, and my husband and I had already set aside a fairly significant sum specifically for child support. So even had this specific scenario not arisen, I feel obligated to offer some, if not all of that, to birth mother, since it was always intended to go to her and son. Anyway, I will keep reading through replies, thank you again, and at this point, plan to speak with my husband this evening about feeling that it is inappropriate to consider this now, and dealing with his grief first and foremost with professional help. And now on to the update. Thank you again to the blunt takes on my situation. Days is still mostly a blur right now, and writing out my issue and reading through the straightforward advice did help ground me a bit. I went ahead and took action on something that I could control, reached out to my therapist, and I got a reference for a couples counselor who specifically is experienced in dealing with grief around child loss. I was thankfully able to get us fit in for an appointment this week. After I returned from work last night, my husband came into our room and immediately started sobbing and apologizing. He had spoken with his dad that day and told him what birth mother had proposed. My father-in-law, bless him, had apparently really went off on the delusion of it. My husband and I had a long into the early morning talk about it, and he was able to recognize and explain that what seemed like interest in BM's request was misplaced desires. He explained that he's been so focused and excited about the prospect of planning for a child with me for the last 4 months and envisioning life as a father of 2, and it felt a little confusing to still be feeling that while dealing with the devastation of losing his son. BM's ask was a total shock for him too, and when you're face to face with someone grieving so deeply, asking for your help or a solution, however absurd it is, it's not always easy to think logically. He was receptive and seemed relieved to have the therapy appointment, so I am hopeful that it will be a start in unpacking these complicated and conflicting feelings. We agreed that he should ultimately end all contact with BM, but will still consider what sort of short-term/lump sum financial support makes sense with consult from a lawyer to keep it entirely copacetic. I realize some comments find the financial part odd, but I just feel strongly about extending appropriate generosity in this transition since we have the means to do so. We also agreed to hold off on any child planning until sufficient time and counseling takes place. Also, I just wanted to address the comments on the stay-at-home single mom aspect in defense of BM. I only mentioned that part to say how entirely devoted she was to her son. She was the primary physical caregiver, and yes, the child support order was enough that it allowed her the option to stay at home full-time and live comfortably, but not extravagantly. Is it the same decision I would make as a career-minded person? No, but that was her prerogative, and I do respect that. I really don't know much about BM as a person, but what I do know is that she was raising a kind, funny, and smart boy who was loved and cared for, and that was what ultimately mattered. To say there is a lot still up in the air emotionally is an understatement. My husband and I are saying the right things to each other now. Who knows what it will end up being in practice. But I am hopeful at this point that my husband and I will be able to move forward together. Now in the comments, I'm glad father-in-law was able to talk some sense into your husband. I am truly sorry for what you guys are facing. With respect to compensation, I admire you for your willingness to extend that to her even after what she had asked. I understand grief is a very powerful thing, but lines have been crossed nonetheless. I wish you luck, OP, and I'm sorry for your loss. I worry the ex has become too reliant on the child support and doesn't believe she can provide for herself, or just plain doesn't want to do so, and that was a big part of her asking for another child from the same father, who has a good career and would provide ample child support. I don't agree with giving her any more compensation, but it's OP's money to waste. A good therapist can help put her in touch with the right resources to help her readjust. The lack of compassion I'm seeing in this and OP's other thread for a parent who lost their child is astounding, and I can't help but think that the respondents are just young and haven't developed much emotional maturity. No parent should ever outlive their child. Good luck with everything. It sounds like this is the best first step that you can take to healing. I can't imagine the loss or feelings you're all experiencing. I hope you and your husband are able to navigate everything and come through in a stronger and healthier union. And now on to the final update. I received many very kind, compassionate, helpful comments and PMs from my original posts, and I thought that it would be easiest to update here for those that asked, because it's a wild development. So, I found out that my husband did not tell me the truth about BM's request. The truth being that he and BM had frozen embryos when they were together from years ago, and she was planning to use those. I obviously had no idea that they had done this, and likely would have never known if not for the fact that BM did have a successful implantation and is now in her first trimester. So, my husband was forced to come clean. The distress I feel about everything that has happened in the past 4 months is beyond words. So, that's it. That's the update. I don't know what to do regarding so many things about this. At least I have a good therapist. In the comments, how did he think that he was going to get away with this? I get that your husband and ex are grieving, but this is basically a screw you to your marriage. He lied to you. Is he now going to go to all the antenatal classes, attend the birth, and have 50% custody? You signed up for it the first time around. This is an entirely different scenario. Has he now decided to start putting your own family on the back burner because he can't cope with 2 babies at once? I'm so indignant on your behalf, and honestly thought that you had it sorted at your first update. The only way that I think you could salvage your relationship at this point is if he signs his rights away as a sperm donor and is not on the baby's birth certificate. OP replies, I'm mortified at how hopeful my previous post reads. I feel quite set on filing for divorce as soon as I can get myself out of bed. I am not fit to be a stepmom or a wife anymore. You have been grievously deceived, and from the outset of your relationship even. He never told you about their agreement about frozen embryos? You're better off getting out of this weird little triad they have going on. I bet he'll move her in the moment you leave. You are fit to be a wife and a mother, just not with this waste of space. Thank goodness you aren't tied to him with a child of your own. You will get through this and emerge stronger and happier than you can imagine. So he agreed to let her use the frozen embryos without your knowledge and is only letting you know now that the implantation is successful. I can't even imagine how you're feeling right now. But what about you? Were you guys still actively trying for a baby? OP replies, yes. Now I'm questioning a lot about what he relayed to me regarding his past and general communication with birth mother. It seems like they may always have some kind of understanding that she could utilize the embryos when she wanted, regardless of my stepson's passing. I even think that weirdly, she thought that I was aware of this or something. But yeah, we stopped trying after my stepson's passing. Of course, I can't imagine also being pregnant at this time, so I know that's for the best. But yeah, I honestly feel really embarrassed to be involved in this like some kind of third wheel. I'm mad, and I'm really, really sad. And I'm sad for the future child. Oh gosh, I'm really sorry to hear that. I was hoping that it was done without his knowledge. I understand that birth mother and your partner are grieving, but this is a big lifetime decision that your partner excluded you on. You went into the relationship knowing about your stepson, and that was your choice to accept, but in this situation, it seems that you've been refused that. What does this decision mean for you and your husband? What does he have to say? And OP replies, he just said he didn't expect to meet someone like me and didn't want to lose me. So he basically just compartmentalized things and hoped for the best. It all kind of feels like variations of lies now though. I wish more than anything that all of this could have come to light without my stepson's passing being the catalyst. No one is anywhere close to accepting the grief of that at this point. I plan to let my husband and birth mother move on with that without me though. Moot point now that OP is removing herself from the situation, but I wonder what the legal disposition of the embryos was from the first divorce. It's almost always covered. Did birth mother retain full ownership and implant without husband's approval? Or worse, obtain approval quickly after the son's death, and husband was blind with grief. And so he hoped that it wouldn't work and he wouldn't have to explain his lapse in judgment to OP. The embryos are a wild twist. Quickly after the son's death is right. Mum was 4 weeks into her grief when she started talking about another baby. She shouldn't have been making major life decisions, especially ones that affect others, like OP and her husband, neck deep in grief from losing her only child. I, 39 female, am married to Dave, 44 male, and he has a son named Avery, 19 male, and an ex-wife named Diana, 42 female. Avery has always been hostile towards me, and blamed me for his parents' divorce, despite his dad not meeting me until 3 years after. I have tried my best to spend time with Avery, and I've been respectful of all the boundaries he set with me. Avery still hates me. It was fine with me, as long as he didn't treat me like crap because he hates me. Well, Avery started treating me like crap when he found out his dad was marrying me. He threw a fit, saying his dad needed his permission before marrying me, and that he wouldn't come to the wedding. His dad and I let it slide, and sat down with Avery and Diana to try to figure out why he was upset. It didn't work out, and Avery refused to see us until the wedding. At Dave and I's wedding, Avery objected to us being married in front of everyone, and asked to make a speech in front of everyone later in the night. In his speech, he told everyone what a horrible person I was, and that I was responsible for his parents' divorce, and that I was a dirty homewrecker. Dave drove Avery back to Diana's, but the damage was done, and several wedding guests assumed that Avery was telling the truth. My wedding night was ruined because of this, and a good part of my family refuses to speak to me, despite explaining to them that this was not the case. Avery has continued to treat me like crap since then. He got mad at me once, so he dropped my cat off at a shelter 2 towns over and refused to tell me where he was until he'd been put down. I wanted to keep my wedding dress after the wedding, and he tore it to shreds. Just 2 examples. I'll give more if anyone wants them. Finally, Wednesday, Dave and I had Avery over for dinner because Avery actually wanted to come. Long story short, when I went to get dessert and Dave wasn't there, Avery confronted me in the kitchen and began screaming at me and told me that I was a horrible person, as well as some other not-so-nice things. Dave eventually came in, Avery left, and I got pissed. I told Dave that I was tired of his son constantly attacking me and treating me like crap because of something he knows didn't happen, and that I'd put up with his bullcrap for the last 6 years. I told him that he had to make a choice between me and Avery because I wasn't putting up with Avery's crap any longer, and if it was a requirement of being married to Dave, I'd be filing for divorce. Dave told me that it wasn't fair to make him make this decision, and I told him that it might not have been fair, but it wasn't fair of him to let his son harass and attack me for years. Am I the asshole for making my husband choose between Dave and his son? Edit 1. I've told Dave that I didn't want to be around Avery several times and got ignored. I was told that we'd go to therapy to try and sort things out, and it never happened. Edit 2. I don't know why Avery blames me for the divorce. If your question is about that, I can't answer you. And now on to the update in legal advice. AL. How do I divorce my husband? I, 39 female, want to file for divorce from my husband, 44 male, who has kept me in an abusive situation for the last 6 years. My husband has never put his hands on me, but has allowed his son to abuse me for the entire time we've been together. His son started out with screaming at me constantly whenever I was around him, and then it went to destroying my things, as well as my cat. Eventually, it got to where he began threatening to harm me, and then actually harming me. To make a long story short, my husband's son stabbed me about 2 weeks ago, and after getting out of the hospital, I ran. I know I'm not safe with my husband anymore. I've been too much of a pushover to his son, and my husband refuses to protect me. It's going to end up with his son killing me, so I'm doing what I can to protect myself. I'm working on getting a restraining order against his son, and I need to know how to divorce my husband. I've never been divorced, I never wanted to be divorced, and I have no clue how to even start filing for divorce. So my question is, how do I divorce my husband? In the comments, get a lawyer. People who tell you don't need one for a divorce are trying to trick you. You'll lose out on things that you have a right to without one. Jesus, I'm sorry you had to go through this. I saw your other posts. I can't believe your husband never defended you against his psychotic son. Besides divorce proceedings, I'd suggest you take pictures of the stab wound he gave you and report him to the authorities. You'll probably not want to, but he almost killed you. He needs to face the consequences of his actions. Disliking a stepmother is one thing, but trying to kill them is another. And if your husband reaches out and promises to change, don't fall for his BS. He had years to defend you, but he didn't. And now, on to the update. Since Am I the Asshole doesn't allow violence, this update is being posted to my profile. To start, about 2 weeks after my post on Am I the Asshole, Avery stabbed me. Dave allowed him over to spend time with him, and I was making myself lunch. To make a long story short, Avery grabbed a knife from the knife block, and I had to be rushed to the hospital. I filed a police report, and there wasn't enough evidence to make an arrest, and Dave was furious with me. As soon as I was released, I ran. I'm currently staying with my sister and am safe. Thank you everyone who asked. I filed for divorce, and I'm working on getting a restraining order. I'm also going to work on getting myself into therapy once the world isn't going batshit, though that might take a while. I definitely need it. To those who told me that I made the post up for karma, thank you. It was totally obviously made up for karma. Sarcasm, by the way. Also, to those who are calling me just as bad for not leaving right away, specifically Joe Nananimous in the comments section of Mr. Desert Fox's video on my post, I know. I'm a huge effing pushover and way too much of an optimist for my own good. I'll answer some questions from various places, specifically the Am I the Asshole post. I would have answered them there, but the post was locked because people can't be civil. What age was Avery when you, Dave and I, got married? He was 17. I met Dave and Avery when he was 13. I dated Dave for 4 years and had been married to Dave for 2 years. How did Avery just drop my cat off at a shelter? Well, the shelters around where I live are high kill. My guess is that he dropped my cat off and claimed he was a stray, and then he waited a month and told me that he was the one who got rid of my cat. What aren't you telling us? You've left a lot out of the story, you won't tell anyone what you've done that is probably just as bad, etc. Here is what I left out. When I met Avery, I was very upfront with him. I told him that I wasn't his mum, and I wouldn't act like his mum. Then he started becoming hostile and openly hateful of me. At first it was just him screaming and throwing tantrums and stealing little things, like things from my small snack stash, little trinkets of mine, small gifts his dad sometimes got me, etc. And then it went to him destroying things, like taking photos off the wall and throwing them against the ground as hard as he could. sticking things into the garbage disposal, dumping makeup into the toilet, and eventually stabbing the couch with a pair of scissors. Eventually, it turned into full-on threats. I lost my temper with him every so often and would call Diana in front of him to tell her about what he was doing. The most parenting thing I would do was send him from his room if he was destroying something. Then he dropped my cat off at the shelter. I screamed at him and cried, and I told him that he was a horrible person. After he screwed up my wedding, the next time I saw him, I asked him what the F he was doing, and then got into a screaming match with him. So to sum up the answer to that question, not much. I can count on one hand the amount of times I've actually been mean to him, as in sending him to his room or getting into a screaming match with him. It was left out because of the character limit of the Am I the Asshole post. Why did Dave and Deanna divorce? Well, when Deanna came to visit me in the hospital, I asked, and this is her answer. Dave wouldn't be a parent to Avery, as he wanted to be more of Avery's friend than a parent, and he was never home. Dave worked from around 6 in the morning to 6 in the evening, and passes out pretty quickly after he gets home. Why didn't I leave after my cat was put down? I have no clue. I should have left. How did Avery get the mic to make a toast after objecting? Dave thought that his precious angel was just having a hard time and would shape up. I'll answer any other questions you have, if you have them. I've been asked to update, so here's the update. Now in the comments, you poor effing thing. I feel so incredibly sorry for you, and honestly, this reminds me of the movie We Need to Talk About Kevin. If you haven't seen it, I recommend watching it. I think Dave is the biggest arsehole here, because why in the hell is he not parenting his child? My children are young, and never would I let them disrespect an adult, ever. So, where was he? Did he not witness things? Why did he never say or do anything? What was the biomom's view on everything? Did she like or hate you? What did she say about the stabbing? Why did Dave get mad about the stabbing when no charges were pressed? And lastly, what's the update now? Has Dave tried to contact you? Do you still live with him? Do you feel like leaving him make AHS think he's won? Has the biomom reached out? I'm curious of what's going on now, and again, I'm terribly sorry that you had to endure that. That's freaking awful, and I hope you heal and find true happiness. OP replies, Dave was upstairs in our bedroom trying to sleep when I was stabbed. He didn't witness much of the incidents, but what he did witness, he wrote off as his precious angel being upset. Diana was pissed when I told her about what Avery did, and I'm happy to say that she and I are friends. She apparently called Avery to handle it, and I don't know what happened after. Dave was mad about the police report, not the stabbing. Dave has tried to contact me several times, though I've blocked him on all social media. I'm not living with him, thankfully. I don't know if Avery thinks he's won, but I don't particularly care. I have been talking to Diana fairly often, at least once a week. What was his furious response with you? You were just stabbed. How did he blame this on you? Is he even trying to save the marriage? Not that you should even think about going back, but I'm just curious. Also, what is Deanna's thoughts about Avery? How was there not enough evidence for a police report? Like, he should be in jail? Good luck and stay safe. OP replies, Dave started screaming at me at the top of his lungs while I was on pain meds. He was mad at me because of the police report, not the stabbing. He's not trying to save the marriage, which I'm thankful for. Deanna was absolutely pissed at Avery. After I called her in the hospital, she apparently called Avery. I'm not sure what she said, but she told me that she was going to handle it as much as she could. And about there not being enough evidence, the police wanted video evidence, which is bullcrap. And now, onto the final update. Officially been divorced for 3 months, and just got my restraining order against the jackass's crazy kid, who is currently waiting for a court date because he broke into his mother's house. Avery tried to get into Deanna's gun safe and got caught on camera doing it. I'm far away from it all, and I'm glad at this point. Now in the comments, so did anything move forward with the stabbing? Like, did Avery ever get arrested or anything? Or did the police just completely fall off after asking for video evidence, which is total bullcrap? Have you fully recovered from the incident? I hope you are doing well. And OP replies, I have fully recovered, thankfully, and yeah, The police fully dropped the bar when it came to investigating the stabbing. Nothing happened to him because of the stabbing, and it was bullcrap. I regret not going to their bosses or the county sheriffs now because of the officer's incompetence, but I needed to get away from Dave and Avery as quick as possible. Have you heard from your spineless ex? Did he ever admit that his crazy son is out of control? OP says, nope. Don't think I ever want to hear from him again either. And now on to the actual final update, number 3. I'll be honest and say that I completely forgot about this account. I came back to 30-something notifications, so I figured someone still might be interested in how things ended up turning out. Sorry if it's not the most interesting update. Dave apparently ended up dating someone else after our divorce was finalized. I found out via Facebook. He stayed with this woman for about 2 months, and then they broke up. I actually happen to know the reason why, because she made a post on her own account. Avery showed up at her house threatening to kill her while he was drunk. This happened at around the same time that he got caught trying to steal Deanna's gun from her safe. So I'm just going to put 2 and 2 together and say that I think I know why he went for the gun. Avery ended up being arrested for it, though I don't think that he was charged with anything. If he was, I don't think that he had to serve any time. This happened about a year ago, and about 3 months ago, I got a call from Deanna. We didn't talk too much after I left, because I believe that she figured that it would be easier for me not to have to hear about any of that anymore. Avery died. His death was called a suicide, though they're not exactly sure if that's the case. It happened at a party, and that's why everyone else said apparently. Somehow, he ended up with some handgun, and they think that he shot himself. I'm not sure that I totally believe that, but I don't want to think about it too much. It's definitely plausible. Avery spiraled pretty badly after I ran, if you can call it that. I feel somewhat sorry for Dave, but I mostly feel sorry for Deanna. Their kid was an awful human being, but they didn't deserve to go through the pain of losing him. No matter how I felt about him and the awful things he did to me, I couldn't bring myself to feel happy that he died. I mean, I'm relieved, if that makes sense, but I'm not happy about it. It feels like it would be wrong to be happy about it. I did end up getting myself into therapy after I got settled. I've been looking back at some of the things that I wrote when it was all initially going on, and honestly, I'm kind of alarmed with how little I reacted to the things that were happening. I feel like I was just exhausted at the time. I brought it up to my therapist, and she told me that it was probably just my way of trying to not break down with everything happening around me. But I'm in a much better place now. I'm looking into getting myself a new cat, and I've even opened myself up to the idea of dating again. F Dave. He literally was going to allow his son to murder someone just due to his sheer lack of giving a crap. Jesus effing Christ. That kid was going to turn into a serial killer. I hope that OP and Deanna are okay, but seriously, F Dave. Yeah, I found it interesting that he got angry at OP for filing a police report after he stabbed her. I'm a therapist and had to report someone's ex-wife for hitting the kid. He freaked out on me because you don't call the authorities on family no matter what. Avery was 13 when this started. His parents should have sent him to therapy right away. His behavior was off from the very beginning. Especially since these issues persisted and were getting in the way of him functioning as a member of his dad's household. Maybe they didn't have insurance/money to cover therapy, but that's the only justification that I can come up with. I feel like even an ER-assisted psych consultant would have been better than nothing, and they generally suck. At least in my area, if you're not recommended for inpatient, then they try to connect you with outpatient services. I think Dad should do the world a huge favor and get a vasectomy. He not only failed at being a father, he failed so hard that he refused to sell therapy for a child who indirectly killed pets and tried to murder at least 2 people. Meanwhile, Dad, quote-unquote, kept ignoring the problem, allowing it to escalate. I think if the kid was still alive and still didn't get therapy, it would have resulted in him eventually killing the dad. I hope her cat was waiting for Avery at the pearly gates and sent him straight downstairs to the other place. The psycho lost the person he blamed everything on, and that was too much, so the obvious thing happened. I doubt that Dave will ever allow himself to realize how much he is to blame for his kid's death. I wouldn't be surprised if he blamed OP. Also, if you're in an abusive relationship, Get out. Don't wait it out. Get out. I ruined my sister's marriage, and I can't live with myself because of it. My younger sister and her husband, my brother-in-law, are/were like the greatest love story I've ever known until I ruined their wedding, and I don't know how to live with the guilt. My family has cut all contact with me, and I can't even blame them for it. The guy who I was interested in also left me, and now I see him happy in a new relationship, but I can't but blame myself. About a year ago, I was on a hen weekend for my best friend in the big city. That's where my brother-in-law has a small overnight rental for when he works in the city. We, as in him and I, decided to meet to exchange Christmas gifts because they were spending Christmas with his family, and my sister was probably 30 weeks pregnant. They live a few hours away. He ran late at work, so I was already bar hopping with the girls, and when I texted him my location, that was the last thing that I remember. I remember there was drugs and alcohol involved, and I woke up in my brother-in-law's bed in my undies. Brother-in-law was livid because I never had taken drugs, and he thought that I was stupid experimenting alone in a city that I didn't exactly know. He found me, passed out in a mini dress when it was below 0 degrees. I was covered in vomit as well, so he took me home. He didn't want me to sleep in my dirty clothes, and he tucked lots of pillows behind me so I didn't sleep on my back and maybe choke on my vomit. Brother-in-law lost one of his best friends growing up this way. He spent the night sitting in a chair next to the bed, scared that I would fall on my back and die. He was really livid the next day and called me all sorts of immature, careless, stupid, ignorant, I could have been hurt, OD, assaulted. I agreed with everything he said because I was reckless and I was so ashamed of it. He told me never to speak of this to anybody, especially my sister, who is the jealous type. I agreed against my better judgment, but he was so kind to me and probably saved me that night, so I agreed. Besides him and me, one of the girls I traveled with figured it out when I disappeared from the club without my jacket and bag, as she had them, and then later brother-in-law asked her to drop by with fresh clothes and coat. She must be the one who spread what happened. A few months later, my sister got the version that I spent the night with brother-in-law and that I needed a change of clothes. Us not telling her everything immediately when it happened only made it worse. They are separated and now processing the divorce. My sister is broken, and my baby niece is going to grow up in a broken home where her parents fight over custody. My mother and the rest of the family have cut all contact with me. I wish that brother-in-law never found me passed out behind that club that night. I should have died from OD, choking, or hypothermia. I'm just so very sorry. In the comments, the really dubious aspect of this story is why brother-in-law didn't immediately call his wife and tell her that he found her sister passed out, covered in vomit, on the street outside of a bar. You find a family member in that situation, your natural inclination is to immediately contact family members just to let them know they are safe. Immediately deciding that this is a secret that we tell no one is so sketchy. That's because they screwed, and this story is bullcrap posted so she can share it and try to redeem her character. Have you told your sister all of this? What you did was very stupid, but she should be thankful that her husband has probably saved her sister's life. OP replies, yes, we told her everything, but it was unfortunately too late. She didn't believe us. And now, on to the update. I'm sorry that I deleted my account yesterday. I just felt overwhelmed by the people who contacted me to say that it was fake. I really freaked out and was very hurt. I don't know why my lack of ability to write makes my conundrum less serious. I don't get the, this is not the whole story either. I spent 4 hours trying to make the text as short as possible. I thought I did a great job. I don't want to convince you to believe me because it doesn't matter either way, but I have to say that I have never seen a post be so attacked. Why so heartless? I will answer a few of the questions people asked, and then I have a small update because I've been in contact with brother-in-law several times today, and I ended up sending him the post. Thank goodness the link worked, even without the account deleted. 1. Where everyone lives. I live in the same town as the rest of the family, 5 hours away from the big city. My sister and her husband live 2 hours away from the big city in the opposite direction. This means that we live 7 to 8 hours apart. 2. Why I was alone that night? I wasn't. My friends were inside the club. I went out for some reason and passed out. The club is on a busy street and everybody was drunk at that time. Nobody was paying any attention. Brother-in-law found me because he recognized me. 3. Why did brother-in-law not talk to his wife, my sister, immediately? I don't know. I was passed out. He said he knew her well. She would be suspicious anyway and probably try to drive in the snow and still think that we were up to something. 4. Why I didn't go to a hospital. Drugs are illegal here. Brother-in-law didn't want me to get into trouble, and I think that he thought that I was just very drunk. I could lose my job if I got it on my record that I had used substances. 5. Was I roofied? No. Unfortunately, I remembered that I was very drunk, and it sounded exciting to take a pill that a guy one of my friends knew was passing around. It was all me and my stupidity, all my stupidity. And 6. Why brother-in-law didn't put a shirt on me or something. He had covered me up with a duvet while I was sleeping. When I woke up, he then lent me his gym clothes. I have talked to brother-in-law today. Someone here suggested a lie detector test, and I really got very excited. Anyway, when I talked to brother-in-law, he wasn't as excited. He told me that he would be brutally truthful with me now. He doesn't want to salvage his marriage. He said that these months have made him understand that my sister and him are wrong together. My sister was cheated on in her previous relationship, and according to him, she was punishing him for what the other dude did to her throughout their relationship. He never said anything because he loved her, and when it was good between them, it was great. That is the part that we all got to see, the fairy tale kind of love. He was terrified when I spent the night in his place and wanted to do anything for her not to find out. What happened with me brought back his PTSD from his best friend's passing, and when my sister found out, he hoped that she would at least be understanding because she knew about his best friend. Her unsupportiveness when he needed her made him realize that he didn't love her anymore. I sent him the post all the same. He apologized for some reason for what my mum did. She beat me because she believed sister. I called him again and asked him if I could at least do the poly to give sister proof that I was innocent. He said that I should do what I saw fit. He said that all he wanted now is to fight for his daughter because my sister is trying to block him from getting custody. He also said that he has been dating a girl for a few weeks now, so that's it. He's moving on. I texted my sister that I was willing to do a poly for proof that I was truthful. She didn't answer me. My mother did, however. She told me to leave my sister alone or they would call the cops on me and get a restraining order. She also called me a junkie and threatened to rat me out to my workplace. I don't know if this guilt will ever leave me. There is no coming back from this, and everybody seems to be moving on. Maybe time for me to move on too. In the comments, I hope hearing the truth about their relationship will help you realize that no matter if that night happened or not, they most likely wouldn't have had a fairy tale ending because their relationship wasn't as perfect as you thought. Your brother-in-law doesn't blame you, so try not to blame yourself. It wasn't your fault. The reason the rest of your family is blaming you is because they're refusing to see the truth. That's on them, not on you. OP replies, I have been crying since. Brother-in-law told me not to tell my sister that he's dating someone. I'm sorry, and this will probably break her. I don't think I could just shut these feelings down. It was all me. He's making a choice to move on. You need to do the same or this will eat you alive. He has all the same reasons to blame himself for what happened as you do, but he's choosing not to, and he's choosing to create a better life for himself. You need to do the same. You need to realize that you didn't ruin a perfect relationship because that perfect relationship only exists in your head. Their relationship was full of insecurities, and it would have most likely ended whether that night happened or not. I hope sooner or later you'll let go of that guilt. OP says, is it okay that I'm a bit resentful of him? I mean, we promised to stay friends, and somehow he felt his friend's death wasn't all in vain because it taught him to save another friend, and I made him reconnect with his deceased friend. I cried all the time he was telling me this, and so did he. But when we said goodbye, it felt like goodbye, from my side anyway, because I felt a bit of resentment that he's hurting my sister somehow. I know I'm not being fair, and it's time to move on. Look, He is free and leaving you in the aftermath. If your family is so quick to throw you away, then they have never valued you and didn't think much of you in the first place. Family isn't always blood, and you deserve better. This was really hard to read, and I'm not sure what OP was hoping for when she posted. I think that she got a lot of really good advice that she doesn't deserve the blame or the guilt, and that her perception of her sister's marriage and even their entire family dynamic is distorted. But she just responds with more self-flagellation. I really hope that she's able to get out of the fog, gets the help she needs, and can start to heal. OP saying that they wish that brother-in-law never found them passed out behind that club, should have died from OD, choking or hypothermia. That's truly depressing in my honest opinion. I hope she gets counseling and realizes her family has a toxic dynamic and that she is better off without them. It looks like OP has been the scapegoat for the blame for everything wrong in her family, and she's sadly just swallowed it whole and internalized it. Our next post is titled, I found out I've been dating my father for almost 4 months. Throwaway because I can never have anyone know this happened to me. I still have no idea how to process it. Buckle up because this is a long one. So I've never met my dad. He ran off when my mum found out she was pregnant with me. My brother was only 8 months old at the time, so he also has no memory of him. There are no pictures of him anywhere, and my mum hates talking about him. All I know is that he was emotionally abusive to her and a real asshole. I, 25 male, have a thing for older men. Call it daddy issues or a fetish or whatever you want, but I pretty much only date or sleep with men 40 and up. My family doesn't know this, or that I'm gay for that matter. It wouldn't be an issue, they just never ask. We don't really share personal things like that. About 6 months ago, I met David, fake name, duh, at a club. We hit it off great. He's in great shape for his age. Supposedly 43, although that's a lie, he's actually 47 as I've found out. Really attractive, charming, etc. He left for a 2-week work trip a few days after we met, but we kept messaging each other and I really liked him, which is rare for me. We went on a date after he came back and have pretty much been dating ever since. He has a lot of money, and I'm kind of his sugar baby, but that's not the reason that I was attracted to him. Definitely a plus though. I didn't tell anyone that we were dating except for 2 of my best friends. He also never met any of my friends or family, and I never met his. This changed last night. We were at a restaurant when out of the corner of my eye, I spotted my mum. I don't live at home and we only usually text if we need something, so I didn't know that she'd be there, and to be honest, I still don't know why she was. She hates going out and thinks that it's a waste of money. She had not seen us yet, but David noticed me looking at her. I'll forever remember the way his face changed when he saw her. His expression went from his casual, charming smile that he always had to this blank, panicked look. I obviously noticed and got a really bad feeling, so I asked him what's wrong, and he just got up and excused himself. I kept asking him where he was going and grabbed him so he couldn't just leave. At this point, I was really confused and suspicious, but I would have never guessed what would happen next. I don't think anything could ever prepare me for it. At some point, while he was getting up, my mother must have spotted us because, next thing I know, she's next to our table asking me what was going on. I couldn't really pinpoint her facial expression because it looked like she was horrified, but again, at this point, I didn't know David was my father and she doesn't know I'm gay. David is visibly uncomfortable and looks like he wants to die. He was literally sweating. I assumed this was because he didn't want my mother to know I was dating someone of his age. I was about to try to explain what was going on to my mum when she said, "Why would you go behind my back like this?" I was so confused because again, I didn't know he was my dad, so what was she going on about? She probably assumed I had looked for and met up with my father without talking to her about it, despite her telling us how badly he treated her. To me, however, it seemed like she was acting crazy for no reason. I kind of took it personally and thought that she was trying to tell me who to date and what to do, so I casually told her that I was just on a date with my boyfriend, and I tried to grab David's hand, but he just jumped up and ran away. He literally bolted like an effing Olympic runner. I cannot get the effing image out of my head of him jumping between waiters to get away. Everyone was staring at us by this point. It was so embarrassing, and I was mortified. My mum looked like she was frozen in place. I was more confused than ever. I had no idea what was happening. I had assumed that she had asked me that because she didn't want me to be gay, which made no sense. She is very open and liberal, or date older men, which made a bit more sense, but was still none of her business. But her expression just made my skin crawl. It's like I could feel the horror she must have been experiencing. She just told me to get up and come with her. I was still confused, but something in her body language told me to just do as I was told. I quickly paid for our drinks and appetizers. Thank God the main course hadn't been served yet because damn, that crap was expensive. My mum excused herself to her friends, and once we were in her car outside, we just sat there in silence for what felt like at least 10 minutes. I didn't really dare to say anything. I was still processing that my boyfriend just effing ran away from me and my mother. I had also tried to text him, but he wasn't responding. Shocker, I know. When my mum spoke, it sounded like she had been shot. She sounded so wounded. I think it might haunt me forever. She asked me about who that man was, and I explained to her, and I went on about how much I loved him because again, I was still thinking of David as my boyfriend and assumed my mum's reaction was because of his age or gender. I cannot believe that I went on about how much I romantically loved my dad right to my mother's face. It makes me want to puke. Long story short, she told me that he was my father and that she instantly recognized him. That talk was the most traumatic experience of my life. We both started crying at some point and just wept for a while in the car. I was howling. It was effing primal. I'm not usually emotional or prone to crying, so it was really shocking to me just how much pain a person can feel. Most of it is just a blur now, especially compared to how clearly I remember every other moment of the evening up to this. We drove home. I slept in my old bedroom. We haven't talked about it since, but my brother is also staying at our place still, and he knows that something is up. He tried talking to me about it, and I just broke down again. How do I ever tell anyone about this? The worst part is, I think that despite all of this, I still love David? Just writing that makes me want to throw up. I cannot believe this is reality. Like, how screwed is all of this? Why did this happen to me? I don't even think I could tell my therapist about this. I tried messaging David, but I just don't know what to say. The last message I sent him literally just says, "Please call me. I love you." Sent right after he ran away. Like, what the F? What the actual effing F? Like, how do I come back from this? How do I ever look at my mum in the eye again? I haven't left my room yet, and I'm in tears again while writing this. I can't even remember the last time I cried before yesterday, and now I've been doing it non-stop. If anyone has any advice, like as if, who the F else would ever accidentally do this besides stupid me, it would be highly appreciated. Also, feel free to make dark jokes about this. It's my coping mechanism. I also did not proofread this as I don't think I can bring myself to read it again. In the comments, "You were not being stupid, you just didn't know. I know it's hard, but you need to speak with your therapist about it." OP says, "Okay, but how do I even start that conversation? Hey Mandy, remember that guy that I told you about that was a great influence? Yeah, that's my dad. Ironic." For real though, I'm so embarrassed. I don't know if I can ever bring it up. I usually go there because of a car accident that I was in last Christmas that really messed me up, and not anything like life or dating related. I barely even talk to her about it. Honestly, just show your therapist this post. I've had to write crap down and even sometimes show my therapist texts that I've sent to my friends. Sometimes it's really effing hard to get the words out. You got it out here. Your therapist will understand if you can't get it out again. So, does he know now that he's been... Is there any chance that he knew before? OP replies, "I'm assuming he put two and two together when he saw my mum. I honestly hope to God he didn't know before. I've also been honest about my age and background, and also mentioned that my father ran off and that I have a brother, but I never mentioned anyone's name, so to be honest, he probably just assumed I wasn't his child. I mean, what are the odds? We also moved to another country a few years after I was born, so he probably never imagined we'd be here. He still has not replied to any of my texts. I also tried calling him, but only let it ring 3 times because I genuinely don't think I could hear his voice right now without having a mental breakdown. So yeah, I don't know for sure if he knows, but the fact that he ran away means that he probably figured it out. Well, now you know why he left your mom. I'm sorry you now have to live with the knowledge that you and your mom have the same taste in men. OP says, actually, he mentioned he was bisexual, so yeah. Not that I ever wanted that information in my life, but now I have to deal with it. Also, I had not considered your last part. Rip to my brain. And now, onto the update. Okay, posting this the first time was a nightmare, so this is take 2. Firstly, I really appreciate everyone's comments, although I'm not in a mindset right now where I can take them seriously. Just feels kinda weird when people tell me everything's gonna be alright when my entire life is in shambles. I do think I'm doing way better than I should. I think I'm just disassociating though. However, what I do not appreciate is countless people DMing me, asking me questions about my sex life, so I will address this once and for all so you can stop. You effing animals. You know who you are. Yes, we had sex. No, I was not the bottom. I do not subscribe to such outdated and heteronormative ideals of what gay sex is supposed to be like. I am a switch and only date other switches. Yes, the sex was good. I don't date people who are bad in bed. No, I will not continue to have effing sex with my father. Send you nudes or give you sex stories of this. Like, what the F is wrong with y'all? Anyways, there you go. Have the tea you so clearly desire so you can effing leave me alone. Now, for all of the other lovely people. I think I need to talk about my mother first. A lot of people have a lot to say about her, and I just think that I need to set some things straight. She is not a bad person and did everything she could to raise us to the best of her ability. She's also a black single mom living in a country where she is a minority and which put a lot of roadblocks in her way. But she always made sure to give my brother and I the best childhood she could. When I think of her, I only have fond, loving memories. Some people assumed because of some of my previous statements that we are not a close family, which is definitely not the case. We just really value independence and freedom. I live about an hour away from my mum, but I still visit her monthly. We call at least once a week. We just don't force each other to confess things or information the other person doesn't willingly give up. My brother, for example, has also been very open about his dating life with my mum. She's met all his girlfriends, and they often come to family gatherings. I'm just more private. That being said, she has not always been perfect, because no parent is. A lot of people were upset at her for not telling us about our dad, and trust me when I say that she is aware that she has made a mistake. But she also moved to another continent just to keep away from him and to make sure that we never run into him. There is no way that she could have known that he would move to the same country as us years later. I'm not going to name specifics because I don't want anyone to recognize this as me since a lot of this is already quite specific, but she really did her best to make sure we never have to go near him, and none of this is her fault. I don't blame her in the slightest. If anything, I blame myself for being so angry at her whenever she tried to tell me or my brother about him. I was never interested in finding out more about my father. In truth, I resented him deeply for leaving my mother alone to fend for herself in a world that wanted to see her fail. Since this has come to light, a lot of things I didn't know about my family have also been brought up. I found out that my brother and my mother often talked about my father, just not in front of me, since I was so adamant to never learn anything about him. I remember throwing a tantrum because my brother kept asking when Dad's birthday was. My brother knew his full name, had seen pictures of him, and knew most of the full story of what had gone down between my mum and him. It is not my story to share, as it is fully hers, and so I will not go into details, but know that he was not just emotionally abusive like I had believed my entire life, but also physically and financially. The story of him leaving when she found out I was pregnant isn't fully accurate either. He apparently threatened to harm her if she didn't get an abortion, and so she packed her things up and left him. According to her, he never reached out or tried to find her, and she moved to make sure that it would stay that way. She really just tried to protect us, and I'll never be able to truly articulate how grateful I am. Obviously, finding out about all of this just makes me feel worse. I always shut them out whenever they try to tell me about my father and refuse to learn anything about him because I naively presumed that I was better than him and therefore didn't need to bother learning anything about a man that I wasn't good enough for. Obviously that backfired, and here we are. Thankfully, my mother does not blame me whatsoever. She is extremely understanding of my side, and we've convinced her to find a therapist, and she also joined a group counseling for victims of domestic violence. My brother, on the other hand, is absolutely livid. I felt we had to tell him eventually, and after consulting with my therapist, we decided to just rip it off like a band-aid, set him down, and I basically told him that I was gay. He did not care, as expected. Then that I was into older men. He was very confused where this was going, and also why I was telling him. I don't think he was ready for it or took it well. And then that I met Dad, and that bomb kinda hit and took all his attention at first because he's always wanted to meet him and really struggled with not having a father, unlike me. His excitement quickly faded though when he connected the dots of me being into older men, meeting Dad, and my mum and my weird and worrying behavior for the past few days. It screwed him up pretty bad. I really regret telling him at all. He can't come to terms with it and is visibly disgusted by the thought as he always viewed our father as our father, while I viewed him as some afterthought sperm donor that ran off. He hasn't really talked to me since we told him, and when he does, it's disgusting remarks, insults, or passive aggression. My mother is furious with him, and it's not helping. She's always hated when we fight, but now especially, she feels like he's treating me unfairly since I'm already going through so much. But I think he's fully within his right to be angry or disgusted. He's just being such a dick about it. It's also really uncharacteristic of him to act like this. He even went as far as to call my aunt, my mum's sister, and tell her what happened. Thankfully, we can trust her to keep a secret. Her and her husband are basically a second set of parents to us, but I still think that it's really screwed up of him to do that. He also refuses to see a therapist and keeps saying that I'm the mentally messed up one, not him, whenever we try to bring it up. It's only been less than 48 hours since we told him though, so I'm sure he'll come around. He also really wants to go meet Dad, which everyone keeps telling him is a terrible idea because he really is the worst. Stay tuned because goddamn, but he is so stubborn and keeps yelling at me to give him Dad's address. He is so obsessed with this idea of a man that doesn't exist and wants nothing to do with him. Even before I found out he was my father, he never wanted to meet my family. Granted, I also didn't want him to meet them, but the one time we talked about it, he laughed at the idea as if it was preposterous. Now, he's really the only person I blame in all of this besides myself. He really is a little cowardly piece of trash, and I wish I had never effing met him. I think this entire thing and his behavior after being recognized just really broke something in me that I didn't really know was there. I never cared about him before, but now I genuinely know that he will also never give a single crap about me, and that really hurts. Basically, I kept texting and calling him the evening of what we referred to as the event because I was desperate and confused and couldn't really believe what was happening. I then texted him 2 more times the day off and called once. No response to either. Then 2 nights ago, I decided to call him again even though everyone in my entire life was against it. This was also just after we told my brother and we had a huge fight about it. I was really vulnerable, and I don't know what the hell was fried in my head, but some part of me must have believed that he would comfort me. He had been extremely emotionally available during our relationship, which very much contrasted what my mother had told me about him and their relationship. I didn't think that he'd pick up the phone, but he did, and it was effing terrible. He immediately started yelling as soon as he picked up. He had never yelled at me before, ever. Started calling me all kind of slurs like gay and pussy, which is just absurd. Started threatening me that he would off me and my bitch mother if I ever contacted him again, said that if I told anyone about this, that I'd regret ever meeting him. Joke's on you, I already do. It was such an effing turn of character, I genuinely was not prepared for it, and had no idea what I was supposed to do. I just cried on the other end of the phone while he kept yelling at me until he finally hung up. The entire thing was utterly terrible, and I can't believe that I didn't trust my mother and listen to her sooner when she clearly tried to tell me just how horrible he was on multiple occasions throughout my childhood. I just feel so stupid. I'll probably never contact him again, but I can't believe that I undid all the efforts my mother put us in to keep us safe all those years and let him play the both of us in the exact same way just because I wanted some dick. I took some people's advice and sent the post to my therapist with a short email explaining some more private stuff. I sent it around 5 a.m. the day after the event and then went to sleep for almost 15 hours and woke up to tons of missed texts and calls from her, starting with extreme concern and then slight annoyance because I think she thought that it was a sick prank since I didn't respond. We talked on the phone later and she told me that I can call her whenever I want. She is not an in-person therapist, which I prefer. I do feel security in knowing that I can confide in her, and I'm glad that I told her. I also joined some online support groups. Most of them either shamed me because of the age gap or my sexuality, so that didn't really do much good. I've also told my 2 best friends, against what some people advised. I trust them with everything, and they wouldn't be my friends if that wasn't the case. I will be using fake names for this though, but basically Leah, my oldest friend, we met in kindergarten, called me on FaceTime. Not unusual. The night of this happening, I told her that I was sick so she would leave me alone, but she called me to ask how I was doing the next day. I had just had another mental breakdown and was still sobbing when I picked up the phone, and she was obviously concerned, and I just kinda blurted it out. Of course, she thought that I was joking at first, asked me if I was on drugs or some crap. I don't even do drugs, because I pretty much never cry. I then just kinda told her everything, and it was really freeing. She was the first person I told. I then sent our other friends the TikTok of this and just let her react to it. Then I told her that I wrote that and let Leah handle it. I'm really grateful for them. They have been insanely supportive. I'm still staying at home, and they're helping me to feed the cat and look after my plants for as long as I need. No judgment at any point, just them asking how they can help. Get yourself some friends like this. So, all in all, my dad is trash to no one's surprise. I might have mentally broken my brother, therapy works, and my mother and friends are the best people on this planet. I'll keep answering questions for the next few days, and I think after that, I'll log out of this Reddit account for good. Documenting and sharing this with people has really helped me, and I appreciate all the comments, even if I cannot do much with them to help my recovery at the moment. Also, the jokes are top tier. Keep them coming. Everyone's tiptoeing on eggshells around me, so it's nice to see the comments just go feral. I just want to feel normal again. How can I, 22 female, make my husband, 37 male, understand that I really love him? It was a marriage of convenience. We got married almost 4 years ago because it was the only way for me to be safe. My father was an abusive and extremely conservative man. He raised me by himself and made my childhood a nightmare. He was sick in the head. He was very religious. He was interested in a religion and culture that were not even ours, and that made him change completely. He didn't want me to have any kind of relationship with boys. That's why I was homeschooled. But when I was almost 19, I tried to escape from home, and when he realized, he did horrible things to me. That's when I met my now husband. He's a lawyer, and he was our neighbor, so he tried to help me, and thanks to him, I was able to go to college and have a safe place to live. But that didn't last long, because soon my father found out where I lived, and he and his friends, who practiced the same religion as him, began to threaten my husband and me. And being honest, the laws in my country are useless. All I could do was get a restraining order, but every time he violated that order, nobody did anything. Not even the police, but what could they do? My father has really important friends, and thanks to their power, they always saved him. So I ended up getting married so I could move to my husband's country and be safe. In all these years, he never took advantage of me. He always treated me as if he were my tutor. He always encouraged me to go to college and get a good job so that I could be independent. And in a certain way now, I am. I'll turn 23 this month. I graduated and I have a very well-paid job that I got myself. A job with which I could rent an apartment and finally move out of his house. But I don't want to do that. I want to be his wife. I mean his real wife. And he knows it because a few days ago we had sex for the first time and I told him that I loved him, but he said that is not true, that I'm really young and that I only say that I love him because he helped me in the past and because he was the first man that I slept with. But that's not true. I thank him for everything he did for me, but I didn't fall in love with him because of that. I love him because in these years I got to know him better and I fell in love with everything about him. He is the sweetest, kindest, funniest, smartest, and most beautiful man that I have ever met. We talked a lot about it, and he told me that he loves me too, but that nothing will ever happen between us because of our ages, that it was best to forget what happened, but I don't want that. How can I let him know that I really love him and that I want to try to make this marriage really work? In the comments, I think his fears are valid. If you want to prove to him that your love is legitimate, do what he asks. Move out, support yourself, and survive on your own. And then, once you're settled, ask him out on a date. Start from scratch and build a relationship based on equality rather than dependence. And definitely try therapy for yourself. You've been through a lot, and addressing your past will also reassure him that your love for him is not just a result of your dad's abuse. I would say a mix of this and the other comment here advising therapy and self-exploration. Take time and be independent, OP. That doesn't mean that you have to lose contact if it's right, but you can explore these things as a mature, healthy, independent woman. And if it's right, you can move forward as independent adults. I agree, but with so many people telling her her feelings may not be as real as she thinks, I thought giving an approach that treats them as legit, that would still help her find independence and self-exploration, could be helpful. Well, you do have to take his feelings into account as well. You have to at least consider that he doesn't love you like you love him, and that there is more than one possibility. I think you've settled on him not wanting to take advantage of the situation, but that he does really love you. So consider that angle. Also consider the angle that he's right. You haven't had the opportunity to date guys your own age. You most certainly have daddy issues because of your past. I would offer this. Offer to do individual therapy to work this out. Ask him if he would be willing to do couples therapy after you've gone for some time. Let some professionals evaluate your mental stability and decision-making. At worst, you realize that he's right and you need to start fresh. At best, he realizes you're in love with him and he admits his love as well. And now, on to the update. Some of you messaged me to post an update, and I thought that it was the right time to do so, so here I am. After my post, my husband and I talked a lot about our future. He told me to move out and try to live my life without him so that I could experience independence for once, but I didn't want to. I told him that I was happy with the life that I had with him and that I wanted our marriage to work. So, after long talks, we literally spent weeks talking about it, he's not very easy to convince, we decided to give it a try, and it worked really well. I started going to therapy because I knew I had a few wounds from the past that needed to heal, and it was the best decision that I made in my whole life. So thanks to everyone who told me that I should go to therapy. It was the best advice I read. A few months after making the decision to make our marriage work, I got pregnant, and therapy was what helped me the most at the time, because to be honest, when I found out, it was not a happy moment. I was scared of being a horrible parent like mine, and if it hadn't been for therapy, I don't know if I would have understood that I am not them, and that my daughter will be safe with me and her dad because we both love her and we will protect her from everything we can. Also, quarantine made everything easier because we spent the whole day together, and it was definitely a great help in making our relationship stronger. I really liked spending those months alone with the two of us because despite the little arguments, not everything is perfect as it seems, I've fallen in love with him even more, and I'm 100% sure that I want to spend the rest of my life with him. And I know I don't love him for what he did for me in the past. I'll always be grateful for that, but I don't love him for that. I love him because he's always trying to make me laugh with silly jokes, because he is the sweetest and kindest man that I have ever met. I love him because he is selfless, and because he always listens to me, even when I know that he had a long and exhausting day. He is always there for me. But what makes me love him the most is seeing him so excited for our baby, knowing that we will soon be a family, the family that I always dreamed of, melts my heart. So things are definitely better now, and I couldn't ask for someone better to spend the rest of my life with. Thanks to all the people who messaged me and gave me amazing advice. I appreciate it with all my heart, because that advice really helped me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. In the comments, well, I perfectly understand the husband's hesitation. Not easy to distinguish if he's taking advantage of her, even if she assures him it's not the case. He does sound like a great guy for taking all of this into consideration, however, and I'm glad that she's in therapy. This whole thing might just work. Yeah, I'm not sure how much I buy his hesitation when he was telling her she needed to move out and be independent after he already had sex with her. I think the fact that they were married for 4 years before they had sex must go some way to show that he didn't really get into this marriage to take advantage of a young, vulnerable woman. However, saying that, this sounds like it's always going to be a tricky relationship to navigate given its origins. I'm glad the OP is in therapy at least. Yeah, like goddamn, I know people here are strong on the predatory older guy thing, for good reason I might add, but there is no way he had to wait this long if that was his intention. And like, come on, people are human. I'm close to her husband's age and I have zero interest in women that young. I find relationships with that age gap suspect at best and creepy the majority of the time. But if I've been celibate, assuming for 4 years, and a legal age woman I like who also happens to be my wife wants to have sex with me, that's going to happen. I'm not a monk. The fact that he felt bad about it afterwards and continued to encourage her to go live her life speaks wonders. Assuming we have the whole story, this is the 1 in a million where I don't have a problem with an older man being with such a young and vulnerable woman. He got her out of danger, never pushed himself on her, supported her, and actively told her to go live her life away from him because he didn't want to be that guy, and she made it clear that she wanted to stay. Does she clearly have some major father figure issues going on? Absolutely, and it's great that she's in therapy, but if she does leave him, she's going to be drawn to older guys anyway, has her dad to thank for that, and most older men looking for 20-something women are not as nice as this guy sounds. Anyone thinking she'd just walk away from this and go live a happy life dating good guys her own age hasn't seen the damage that a bad father can do to a young girl. Our next post is titled, I got a text from my husband by mistake that he was supposed to send to his affair partner. I have been doing an online college for 3 years. Now the last 6 months is an internship where I had to relocate to the capital that is a 5-hour train ride from where my husband and I live with our 2-year-old. I can only afford going home 2 weekends a month. We're saving to buy a house once I'm finished with my studies and landed a decent job. Yesterday, I got a very stupidish text that said, no sleepover, early day tomorrow. What the hell? So I logged into my husband's iCloud. He's been sleeping with a friend of ours, and the reason is that I'm not home to take care of his needs. He tells this friend over and over again that this is just sex, just as long as I'm not in town, and that he loves me and isn't interested in her emotionally. She's a temporary solution. I mean, I get it. Dicks probably fall off if they don't get wet, so I fully understand you, husband. I sent him the screenshots of my findings, and believe it or not, I also have needs. But instead of sneaking around behind his back with a mutual friend, I introduced him to my temporary solution. I'm contemplating forwarding the screenshots to the woman and her husband too. I think that we'll need to be on the same page. It's just fair, isn't it? In the comments, what did he say when you sent the screenshot of your findings? Tell the affair partner's husband. He needs to know what his wife is up to, and as for your husband, you need to start making an exit plan. OP replies, I haven't answered him yet. He's freaking out, I guess. Her husband is a total douche. That's why I'm still thinking, like, what if he hurts her? It's big of you to consider her safety considering what she's done. So, he's been in contact then? Leave him hanging for a bit. Give yourself time to get yourself together enough to have a conversation with him. OP replies, yeah, not ready to talk to him yet. All he cares about now is that I don't sleep with someone. He hasn't texted about anything else. What? His only concern is that you don't run down to the nearest bar and do a revenge hookup? Lol? This man is a complete joke. OP says, he is, isn't he? I so hate stories like these. They make me exceedingly sad. I'm disabled, and my husband and I haven't been able to have PIV sex in nearly 2 years. I feel intensely guilty over it, but he constantly reassures me that my well-being is much more important than his temporary wetting of the dick. I'm happy to report that his dick has not yet fallen off. It's still firmly attached to his balls. Seeing posts like this always makes me question and think that he's just saying that, but internally he resents me. But his actions completely correlate to his words, and I understand that's my insecurity talking. In a moment of severe depression, I tearfully told him that if he really needs to, he can go get sex elsewhere. He looked at me like I was insane because he said he loves me for way more than what I can do for him physically. It's just sad that your husband still has you, and you guys are capable of being intimate, but that's not enough for him. He wants more. I just hope you know that that's not acceptable. Unless you two have spoken about and both consented to the other sleeping with someone else just for sex, then it's absolutely 100% wrong. You don't need to put up with that. You are worth way more than just physically pleasing your husband. I'm sorry, I have nothing else to add. I just wanted to say that I'm sorry that you're in this situation and you deserve more. And your husband's dick will most certainly stay firmly attached to him even if no one touched his pee-pee in years. I promise. You deserve better. Good luck. And OP replies, I'm so sorry. I never meant to make you or anyone doubt their spouses. Your husband, as opposed to mine, is a gem. And now on to the update. I could finally cry. Update from the other day's real-life soap opera. So this is the update about my post from the other day, where my dear husband sent me a message that was purposed to be sent to our mutual friend that he has been screwing for the past 3 weeks or so. I'm back in my hometown for the weekend, but I'm staying at my parents'. I don't think I'm ready to be home yet, or ever, because I keep picturing them all over my home. God, I hope they stayed away from my favorite chase lounge. He wanted to talk before I went to my mum. He said that he was sorry and that he loved me, and she never meant anything, just sex. How romantic. He will never speak to her again. Aw, how nice of him. He wants to work on our marriage and suggested counseling. Duh. I told him that I was meeting a dude on Sunday, and I showed him his picture. He got very upset and started crying and arguing, and then threatening with divorce. How original. I told him if that's what he wanted, then I totally understood, but that I have needs. When I saw Mum, I just started bawling my eyes out. It's the first time I cried since everything. She was scared at first, but I was too exhausted to start on the details, so she got the coming attractions. She started crying too. Dad was right. I have inherited my mum's flair for drama. I just went and took a nap in her bed with my son, and when I woke up, she had made my favorite foods. We talked about the week that was, and my plans. I sensed that she was getting agitated about me starting to hook up with city dudes, but surprisingly enough, she just said, "It wouldn't be you if you didn't." Should I be offended by that? Dear husband texted what I believe is his way of a compromise. He wants me to quit my internship because I could always do it next year. Instead, we take this year off to work on our marriage, and we could wait with the house and other dreams that we have planned. What a stellar guy. Yeah, I won't dignify this text with an answer. I'm afraid we are kicking stepdad to the guest room tonight because my son and I are taking his place. Sorry the post got long. Good night. In the comments, I remember your original post. Wishing you and your son the best. You deserve someone that will respect you. Funny, he can sleep around because he had needs, but doesn't want you to? How about the affair partner? Does she know that you know? And did you tell her partner? OP replies, not going to talk to her, nor tell her douche husband. She knows I know, and I want nothing to do with her. He has a right to know, and I think you should tell him. OP replies, a right? Why do I get the vibe that you're an incel offended on behalf of the husband because dicks? I have already addressed this several times. This is my story, my marriage, and my life. Nobody else has rights with me. I won't be discussing this matter anymore, especially not with angry, offended men. Wait, why are you mad at the lady's husband if he didn't know? She has posted several times that he is not a good guy and that she is worried for the affair partner's safety. Commendable. Even though the affair partner has a part in the destruction of her marriage, OP is not willing to risk affair partner getting harmed by her husband. Look, I get that, and I'm on her side for that too, but calling a guy an incel just because he lacked these details is rather low also. Not all guy, or rather genders, are labeled to cheating. Cheaters and abusers are on both sides and are all POSs. So besides this label, I'm rooting for OP's recovery as I know this hurt myself as a guy. He's also glossing over the fact that he screwed around with a mutual friend while OP just knocked boots with a rando. Not really equal unless she hooked up with a mutual friend as well in their apartment while the child is under the same roof multiple times. Seriously, gotta love how he's claiming that OP is the one who ruined the marriage. Yeah, dunno if doing it in their home or doing it with a friend is worse, but she did neither and he did both. She did it once, he did it multiple times. How is she the bad guy in his eyes? He has no moral high ground. My husband got jealous over the girl he led on for years at our wedding. I, 25 female, got married to my husband, 24 male, and we'll call him Jim, a week ago after dating for 2.5 years. Jim has a friend called Misha, 22 female, who was invited to the wedding. He and Misha have known each other since high school and were close friends, and Misha had a very obvious crush on Jim from what he and others who know them have told me. Jim told me this after I met Misha for the first time and confessed that he leaned into her crush and led her on throughout their high school years and for a little while after, before we got together because he was struggling with his mental health and he really liked her attention. He seemed genuinely guilty about all of that because he thought Misha was a nice girl and a good friend, and because he showed guilt, I didn't feel the need to bring it up or argue about it despite thinking that it was a shitty thing to do. Plus, Misha is a nice girl who has never overstepped boundaries and has been nothing but kind and friendly towards me, and I now consider her a friend too. Misha moved away to the city last year and has done really well for herself, and has a long-term boyfriend who none of us has met yet, so when it came to sending wedding invites, I told her that she was welcome to bring him as her +1. The first red flag came when Jim was weirdly hesitant to the idea of Misha bringing her boyfriend, but he excused it on being concerned about the number of guests we invited, and then the matter was dropped. When the wedding day came, Misha showed up in this beautiful dress. Nothing inappropriate for a wedding, and with her boyfriend on her arm, who I'll admit is a very handsome guy. Think a Kit Harington type. She's also lost weight and has a haircut that suits her better, and I thought she looked great. We also found out throughout the night that her boyfriend is very successful and earns more than practically anyone else who attended. Throughout the reception, I noticed Jim glaring at Misha and her boyfriend the whole time, and he was really cold and short towards her when she came over to congratulate us and give us a gift. He was also straight up kind of rude to her boyfriend when Misha introduced us to him. When his mom, who's always known and liked Misha, mentioned that she was glad Misha found a great guy and praised her boyfriend for being so nice, Jim snapped that at least she won't be desperate and hung up on me for the rest of her life. Which I thought was cruel and uncalled for, but I didn't challenge him because I didn't want to argue at my wedding, despite the fact that he frankly sounded bitter. The whole thing has left an awful taste in my mouth, and I can't help but think that Jim got jealous that Misha found a guy who's honestly quite a catch, who she's clearly very in love with, and is now completely over Jim. In the comments, I think I would have to take a step back from hubby and see if there were any other red flags I've missed. He was jealous of this woman and her boyfriend on your wedding day. I cannot imagine how much this hurt you. I am so sorry. How he admitted to treating that girl was the red flag, and OP entirely overlooked it basically. He was okay using someone to meet his own needs and feed his ego for years. How exactly did OP think that makes for a good husband material? But that's the other problem. Way too young in my opinion to be getting married anyway. Dude. Right? Years he spent stringing her along. I am so proud of Misha for her perceived happiness, and I hope it is genuine. If your husband couldn't enjoy his wedding day, I fear for your future. His only reason to snap is jealousy, but you should be his world. Yes, your husband had a weird reaction and probably is unhappy that someone he slighted and thought not good enough to date him is now doing better than him. But please don't listen to random Redditors crying divorce and annulment because they don't know what they're talking about. Please let your husband know how it made you feel and show him where he was wrong. OP needs to get a divorce now before things get even more out of hand with unexpected craziness. It's giving bitter. Can't imagine how that must have been for you. Says a lot about his character, to be honest. OP replies, "It felt a lot like watching a kid get upset at another kid for playing with a toy they personally never wanted to play with in the first place, if that makes any sense. He probably wants to play with it now that the toy looks better, happy, and is desired by someone that apparently puts him to shame. I'm sorry, OP, but that's a terrible way to remember your wedding. He was marrying you while getting jealous and thinking about another woman, all grumpy and mean at the wedding instead of being happy and celebrating with you." Back up to the post, we have a half update. After getting some PMs from people, I decided to go through his phone while he was napping after work, and, needless to say, this marriage is over. I'll post a real update when I have sorted out everything. And now, on to the update. Hey everyone, I'm posting this here because I said in my last post that I would update when I was able to. Pretty much the day after my original post, I got some PMs suggesting that I go through my husband Jim's phone to see if he and Misha truly were just friends before this, and that nothing romantic happened between them that would explain his reaction at the wedding. He always takes a 45-minute nap after work, and so I used that as an opportunity to swipe his phone from where it was charging on his desk so that I could look through it. I've also seen him put in his passcode a ton of times, so that wasn't an issue. I didn't find anything in his texts with her, but I know that Jim goes on Instagram a lot, so I checked there too. The immediate red flag was that he'd used an app lock that required a passcode to access Instagram, but the idiot used the same passcode that he uses to unlock his phone, so I got into that right away. It's his birth year. Go figure. And what would you know? I got to his messages with Misha and find messages from him the morning after our wedding telling her how beautiful she'd looked that night, how much he'd missed her, how he felt that her boyfriend being there spoiled his opportunity to catch up with her, and that he was desperate to meet up with her. Misha never replied to these messages, and he sent some more to her later that day. I won't get into what he said because there were very personal insults that were frankly just gross, but just think about the kind of stuff you would read on that nice guy's subreddit. Misha left him on red, and when I clicked on her account, it appears that she's blocked him. I scrolled through their messages quite far back, and I believe nothing romantic has happened between them. I wish that was all, but looking into his other conversations on Instagram, I found out that he's been messaging other girls on there too. They seemed like aspiring Instagram model types from our area. Most of these conversations were just him shooting his shot and getting left on red, but others had evolved into flirting and 2 of them resulted in sexting. And the most embarrassing part of them all? The nudes he was sending to these women weren't even of him. I know what his body looks like, and he doesn't have chiseled abs and isn't that well endowed. I think he must have found a man's profile on some adult website and used those pictures, just cropping the face out. These 2 conversations happened in the past 6 months. I ended up texting his mother and his brother from my phone, asking them to come and pick him up from the apartment, and then I went to wake him up. I told him that I knew about the girls he was messaging on Instagram, that he needed to pack a bag and get the hell out before I started throwing his stuff out on the street and causing a scene. He started crying and begging me not to kick him out and swore that they were just messages and that he would never actually cheat on me. But I don't believe him for a second. Then he had the nerve to tell me that he didn't want me to tell anyone else about what he'd done, but I had left the room and started ignoring him by that point. He left with his mum and brother and is staying there from what I know. I've blocked him on everything for the time being until I'm ready to tell him that I'm seeking annulment. Thankfully, where I'm from, you can get one almost no questions asked as long as you haven't been married for longer than 30 days, and I've already looked into the process. I haven't really left my apartment at all this week, and I've been calling in sick at work because I don't feel like I can face people. I'm just so embarrassed that I've wasted over 2 years on this man and that I married him in the first place. I don't feel like I can even talk to people about this, so posting here has helped, and I'd like to thank you all for your kind words, advice, and support. I might reach out to Misha when the dust has settled, but I think I'll need to build up some courage for that. In the comments, Oh god, OP. A million sorries for what you're going through. You should be happy and in the honeymoon phase right now instead of this crap. This is a sucky consolation, but at least you found out now before you had years and children in a marriage with him. Yikes. This is so much cringier than cheating. He's a massive loser. I'm glad you're getting away from him. How to ruin your life because you can't hide the fact that you're lusting after another woman at your actual wedding. I wonder if he was lusting or if it was just an ego thing. I've known people in that situation who string someone along who has a crush on them. They like the ego boost, and when that person moves on, it stings them. Ego thing for sure. I had an ex like this myself, and boy, are they ugly on the inside. And sometimes on the outside, when the rose-colored glasses come off. It's cathartic watching them implode a little when they learn that you have self-esteem now. The only real bright side in this story is she didn't waste any more of her life on this lying loser, and she realized what was up immediately after the wedding. Yes, plus she was nice with Misha at the wedding, and didn't blame others for her guy's horrible problem. A lot of people would have felt insecure and lashed out at Misha instead of the guy. She was smart enough to put the blame on the person who deserved it, and was able to get away right away instead of wasting years on this guy. So many people try to blame the person their partner cheated with, or in this case, tried to cheat with, and got shot down. Then, they stay with the cheater and keep blaming other people as if that will salvage the relationship. Far better to focus your upset feelings on the jackass who caused them and to get them out of your life and move on. Our next post is titled, I, 30 male, rejected one of my best friends, 28 female, that I used to be in love with. I met my friend Jean 3 years ago at a rec soccer league, and I was pretty infatuated with her from the beginning. Another guy in the league, lawyer dude, LD, also liked her, and part of the same group of friends we got together at this league. After over a year, our friendships deepened, and I honestly fell more in love with her too. I was hesitant about damaging our friendship, but came clean and asked if she wanted to explore something more. She told me that she loved me as a friend, but not into me like that, since she didn't want to get into a relationship at the time, so even though my heart was broken, I moved on. Less than 2 months later, she started dating LD, and it became clear to me she wasn't necessarily avoiding relationships, but she just didn't want me, lol. I think all my romantic feelings for her ended right at that moment, since I'm the type of person that wants the same excitement and feelings for a partner that I give to her. No big deal, was honestly happy for her. We were still good friends, but I left the league because my professional life picked up since I was promoted to CFO for my company and I just didn't have the time for it. We still joked and texted all the time, and Jean and LD even came out with me, my friends, and sister to a party and some nights out. Jean even became good friends with my sister, which I was happy to see because I'm happy to see my sister surround herself with great people. A few months ago, Jean and LD broke up, which came as a surprise to everyone because they seemed great together. I'm finding out in the past several weeks from Jean and my sister that LD was abusive and has been emotionally, psychologically, and even physically abusing. Physical abuse picked up in the last few months of their relationship, almost the entire time they were together. She even had pictures of the bruises on her body and everything. I feel terrible for her, and she's been spending more time with us, and I think she's well on the path to recovery. She should probably see a therapist or something to confirm that. Last weekend, we were drinking some wine in my kitchen and goofing around. She's teasing me about the last few girlfriends I've showed, and even doing an impression of some. We're in New York City, and dating in people can just be weird here, lol. I was pretty tipsy, and my kitchen is tiny. It's a Manhattan apartment, and I'm pretty sure that she initiated a kiss. We kiss for maybe 7 to 10 seconds before I put a stop to it and try to defuse the situation, joking about how strong the wine is. She agrees, laughs about it, and goes home. Early the next morning, she's at my doorstep and wants to talk. She said she's in love with me and we can start what we should have started when I confessed to her years ago. I told her I love her as a friend, but I don't see her romantically like that, and it wouldn't be a good idea. She seemed incredibly hurt and asked if it's because I rejected her, and I told her it wasn't, but I don't think she believed me. To be honest, it probably is the reason. As I mentioned earlier, unless someone is as golden lab excited about me as I'm into them, I lose interest in them romantically. I probably have issues, but that's just how I am. But in no way am I trying to purposely punish her. Now even my sister is texting me and giving me a hard time because she sees it as her friend who was manipulated into a relationship when she wasn't ready for it by a narcissist and then abused. She's accusing me of being vengeful and petty with someone who is my soulmate because she got manipulated into a relationship and chose someone else over me. My sister has also dated some assholes in the past, so I think she's just seeing it from Jean's perspective, which I don't fault her for. I reached out to Jean to see if she's okay, but she said she needs time, and it's possible we should never see each other again. I think this is super hypocritical since I continued to be a good friend when she rejected me. I don't know what to do here. I truly do love her platonically. Should I try to explore if there's romantic potential here? I'm about to lose a friend and also ruin my close relationship with my sister. In the comments, if you don't feel for her, you don't feel for her. You need to confront your sister with her bullcrap. Simply advise her that you can't help that you have moved on and you are no longer romantically interested in her. Tell her that you are disturbed by the fact that she's talking about Jean being your soulmate when she's just another friend you both have in your life. Yeah, you may have had interest in the past, but that was in the past. You've grown as a person and have had experiences with Jean which have changed how you viewed her as a person. You still care for her, but you can't view her more than a friend now. It's very weird to feel pressured and coerced into a relationship just because someone else feels you're a perfect match and completely disregarding your feelings. That's not healthy and sets a precedence for how any sort of relationship with Jean may go, with your feelings being ignored. Advise her while you understand that Jean is her friend and she wants what's best for her, she cannot possibly think that it's okay to dictate who you involve yourself with romantically or who you choose not to. It's none of her business, and also makes you feel as if she doesn't have your best interests in mind because you told her how you feel and she's not listening, and instead trying to sell you her dream. If you don't feel something, you don't feel something. You don't owe her anything. When she had you and someone else on the table, she chose someone else. No issue with that. Can't help how you feel. But then you moved on, and you can't help how you feel. It's never all right to be coerced into a relationship. Don't let that sort of behavior slide because then they may take other liberties. If you end up feeling something in the future, cool, but let it be on your terms. And if Jean cares enough, she'll wait to give you the space. She can choose to move on if she likes, but no one can live your life for you, especially not your sister who has shown signs of obvious bias and lack of actual care for your best interests. Try to let Jean down gently, but firmly again. Ask her to please respect your decision as you respected hers and not involve your family. Offer space or a break from the friendship if needed, but make your decision clear in no uncertain words. Set boundaries, and hopefully you can move on with your friendship with Jean and relationship with your sister on a healthier road. OP replies, "Yes, I need to sit down and have a chat with my sister first and foremost. We're going out to grab a meal today, so we'll have an opportunity to hash it over and let her know she should step back for the time being. She's always been a great little sister, but has a tendency to go a little crazy if she thinks she's doing something for my well-being. I'm giving Jean space for the time being to find her bearings. I might text her later to see if she's doing okay, but I think physical distance is good." Nah man, I would leave Jean alone for a while. Jean is seriously lacking some common sense right now. It's been years. Did she really think you'd just wait around for her? I know you were jokingly comparing yourself to a dog, but it's like she really thinks that way too. She can say, "Come here, boy," and that you have to obey. And to make it worse, she thinks you were saying no as revenge? You've been a good friend and that's what she thinks of you? Remove yourself from the situation as best as you can and be honest. You don't need to give her or your sister any reason other than, "I'm just not into her like that." Done. She's in a bad headspace because of her ex, but that girl needs to be single for a while. You don't owe anyone an apology or a damn date. And now, on to the update. I had some people messaging me asking for an update that I've mostly ignored, but I wanted to provide an update today. I had brunch with my sister the day after the first thread went up. I actually showed her the thread, and she spent half of our meal reading through it. She actually agreed that it's not her place to butt in, and apologized about making this situation more difficult for me. She said she's going to be on my side, and I can count on her going forward. She's also actually agreed with a lot of the posts that I should probably take a clean break, or at least some very serious distance between Jean and myself. So that's what I've been doing, until last night. Went to a party in Brooklyn last night for a friend's birthday, and took an Uber back home to Lower Manhattan. Around midnight, my front desk calls asking if they should let a Jean up. I'm confused, and I say yes. She comes up, and she's looking much happier and healthier than I've seen her in months. She hugs me and said she misses me, and if we can just talk and hang out. She said she saw me in the party earlier that night on Instagram, and our mutual friend that was there said that I left early, so she came over. I've been drinking, so I guess it's less awkward, so we just start talking like old times about what we've been up to the last week, and everything crazy that's going on in the world over some beers. We're in my god-forsaken tiny kitchen again, and she kisses me. I don't stop her this time, and she ended up spending the night. Waking up this morning, I didn't and still don't know what to think. Left while she was still sleeping to pick up some coffee. When I'm back, I hear the shower, so I sit on the bed and wait for her with the coffee. When she got out, she realized that I wanted to talk about last night, so she asked if she could talk first. She said she knows I'm confused, knows how it feels like I'm her backup, knows how it feels like I'm the rebound. But none of that is true, and she loves me and wants to do whatever necessary to prove and make it work. I told her that I'm feeling confused about the situation, and I don't feel the same type of love for her that she thinks she feels for me. She started crying and asking if she can do anything to prove it to me, so I told her that I think it's best if we take some time apart to do our own thing and let all these high emotions settle down. And if necessary, we can pick up this discussion with a cooler heads and maybe even become friends again. She cried some more and agreed. Left a few hours ago, and I'm still feeling kinda shell-shocked over the whole thing, and have been just pacing around my apartment. I think I made the right decision about taking a clean break for now. Anyways, I appreciate all the great advice last time, so thank you guys. In the comments, just my 2 cents when someone says they aren't interested, my brain usually just shuts them off as an option. It's fairly natural for me. I think it's a very healthy way to be. You did this and did everything right to stay a good friend and not some asshole nice guy stuck in the friend zone. I both commend you on that and think that it gives you a perfect tool to explain it to her. Since you once had to shut all your feelings off and reshape how you saw her. Asking the exact same thing of her now is both fair and intelligent. It is now her job to not be a creeper and to simply be glad to have you as a friend. Now on a side note, if you both do know the other is an option and as real friends redevelop those feelings later, then that's awesome. Falling in love with a great friend is almost always amazing. However, it can't ever be one-sided at the start or it will always stay that way. So asking her to back off of that and prove that she can still be a good friend with the roles reversed is the only logical path that she should have to what she may potentially want. Well done. When I read that you slept together, my heart sank for you because so many people would just start their relationship from that point, and you did exactly the right thing by putting some distance between you. I find it a little sinister that she came to your house knowing that you had been drinking and initiated something that you already told her sober you didn't really want. If I were you, I would feel tricked and a bit used. As someone else has suggested, if the genders were reversed, this would likely be classified as coercive assault. While she may be doing better now, her initial "I see you as a friend" is likely the truth, and she is still looking for safety after an abusive relationship. And now onto the final update. I had some time and a lot has happened unfortunately, so I figured I'd provide an update since you guys provided some good advice that I didn't recognize as such last time. I went straight no contact after Jean went home after our night together. Only contact we had was via text when she asked 2 days later if she could come over so we could talk, and I told her that I didn't think that was a good idea and I thought that it was best we spent some time apart for the foreseeable future. Got a few more texts saying she understood, then how good we'd be together, and then finally how I'm making a mistake. I ignored all of it until it stopped a week into it. At this point, I sadly accepted the reality that we probably could never be friends and was fine with it. We both moved on and hopefully find happiness somewhere else. I mentioned before that I'm the CFO for my company. For the last year, we've been finalizing closing a deal with another major company, and obviously because of all these global macro events, it's made things a lot more complicated. I have incredibly strong feelings for the legal counsel, LC, for this company that I've been working with. She's drop-dead gorgeous, smart as a whip, and an insanely tough and strong-willed woman. I tried once, several months ago, to ask her out, but she saw my attempt from a mile away and rightfully let me know that it was hugely inappropriate for us to start a relationship because of the deal that we were working with. I agreed, and although I've dated plenty the last year, I've been pining after her this entire time. 2 weeks ago, the deal was officially finalized. I'm not kidding when I say this. Literally less than 60 seconds after the deal was announced, I asked her out, and thank goodness she accepted. The date was incredible. She told me how difficult it's been the last several months working so closely with me when we had such strong feelings for each other. Just like how so many of my friends know about her, she's also told her friends about me. Spent the entire evening talking about how excited we finally are, and then she came home with me. Now, I have no idea how, but Jean found out. She messaged her 2 days later on LinkedIn asking to talk. LC thought Jean was an annoying recruiter or saleswoman at first, and then Jean mentioned she knows about us seeing each other. Jean told LC that she and I were in a complicated and bumpy phase in our relationship. When LC didn't respond, Jean mentioned how I manipulate and use women. How I am a serial dater and only chase women, and if a girl has feelings, I hurt them instead. LC was freaked out about this. The next day she asked me for coffee and showed me all of this. Said that she likes me but doesn't really want to get involved in any drama and maybe we shouldn't see each other. I had to beg her to give me a chance. I told her our entire history, and thank God I actually wrote it down in the previous posts, so I showed those to her too. She agreed to give us a chance, but I can see she's shaken up with all of this. I am infuriated. I honestly don't know what to do. I've never been a vengeful and hurtful person, but I'm really tempted to call Jean and say some incredibly hurtful things to her. LC and I have blocked her in all mediums of communication. I made my sister do the same, who is also freaked out by how Jean is behaving. This is probably and hopefully the final update. I'm kind of upset that so many of you told me how manipulative and potentially dangerous Jean was, and I completely ignored it. I've learned my lesson now though, and will act accordingly if I have to interact with Jean again. I honestly think going through an abusive relationship taught her some incredibly toxic things. I am angry with her, but I know in my heart that she wasn't always like this. I urge anyone, if they're able to donate to the National Domestic Violence Hotline, which Elsie and I did. Non-profit organization and donations are tax-deductible to the full extent of the law. In the comments, while this lull feels good and is no doubt deserved, Jean contacting a total stranger to completely assassinate your character to her is severely dangerous behavior that needs to be burnt down to its roots. Seek legal advice on how this can be dealt with decisively and within your country's legal framework. It is unfortunate that, while Jean no doubt has some genuine moments of kindness in her, she had always held the understanding that you were pining and strung along by her from the very first rejection of you, and when she was finally ready to fall back on you, she could not fathom that she was in fact not the center of your universe. That is why her outrage and entitlement is so personal to her and runs so deep. How has your sister been recently, by the way? She was totally complicit in enabling Jean's delusions early on. Has she genuinely come around now, or does she still show signs that she might be undercover and helping Jean with her agenda? I ask this because in both this and the previous update, Jean totally knew personal and private information about you without it being public. Clearly, she is getting these leads from somewhere or someone. OP replies, I'm not worried about my little sister. She's told me that she's not talking to Jean, and I believe her. I haven't really told our entire social circle what's been going on, so there might be a few who aren't aware of what's going on that learned these details from Jean. I will definitely keep details of my life more private now. Also deactivated nearly all of my social media, with the exception of LinkedIn. Holy crap, this is the classic mentality of, if I can't have something, no one else can have it either. Jean is trying to destroy all of OP's relationships so that his only option is her, and I don't think she's realized that she has become the abuser. Psychological and emotional abuse are extremely easy to find yourself perpetuating the cycle of, especially in comparison to the build-up that physical abuse takes. I guarantee that she knew that OP was interested when she got together with her ex, and genuinely thought that she would always be able to fall back on him if things fell apart. Then it turns out that her back burner was turned off and emptied out from lack of care. She then realized that OP was interested in someone else, and the realization of not having that fallback plan kicked in. I'm not excusing what she did, because even realizing that your plans fall apart doesn't excuse lying about someone else and then trying to ruin their personal and professional relationships. Yeah, abuse is very much a cycle. Completely one of those things where if you stare into the abyss, it will stare back into you. He doesn't want children. Last night, my husband told me that he doesn't want to have children. He cried and told me that he's known for sure for a while, but didn't know how to tell me because he knows how important it is to me. We've been together for 9 years, married for 2 years, and although he's been depressed for the past year, difficult career, stuff happening for him, I thought that things were on track. He said many times that it wasn't a good time for a baby, or that it made him nervous, but never ever that he didn't want them. I'm devastated. I cried and raged and called him a liar. He says he's been lying to himself all this time. I cried myself to sleep and he got up early and went to work without waking me. I'm 37. I feel strongly about having a baby very soon, and the thought of never having one breaks my heart, but so does leaving my marriage. I love my husband so much. I would move mountains for him, and I'm so angry and sad. Is there any way to move forward? I simultaneously want to hold him and punch him right now. I don't know what to do or how to feel. In the comments, it's going to come down to how badly do you want to have a baby and child. As much as leaving your marriage would suck and hurt, if you really want a child and he doesn't, that's not going to help/save your marriage here. It will only divide it. It's not fair to either of you to stay together simply because you're afraid to be without each other. Forcing him into the parent role when he doesn't want it will be bad too for everyone involved. This is coming from someone who was raised by parents who had me out of obligation, not want. Trust me, I knew they didn't want me. It's not something I wish upon anyone. I'm not insinuating that you would force him to stay and be a father, just informing you of a possibility. If you think you can let go of having children to stay with him, then you can always choose that. But you may regret that later in life, and could even start to resent your husband. Good luck. I hope you can figure out what you truly want, and I hope whatever it is, you are truly happy. Was this not a conversation you two had before starting the relationship? 9 years ago, you were 28. Not old by any means, but also at an age where talking about kids and having some sort of timeline would have made sense. OP replies, actually, about 3 years ago, before we got engaged, I sat him down and asked when he felt he'd be ready, because I was getting concerned about my fertility. He said at that time in a year or two would be good, because he was in the last year of his postdoc and wanted to have a stable job and might have to move to a new city. He didn't say he never wanted a child, not even a hint. Then he purposely lied in order to secure his relationship with you. It's fine to change your mind on not wanting kids, but it seems he never wanted them, but strung you along by saying he did one day. You can have your marriage, or you can have kids. Apparently not both with him. And let me tell you, if you've always wanted kids and knew being a mom was a purpose in your life, you should have the kids. I'm a new mom and I couldn't imagine life being any better than having this little girl with me in it. OP says, we talked about it then. I told him within the first year that children were important to me, a deal breaker. He expressed nervousness about it because he doesn't have experience with children the way I do, but never once did he say that he didn't want them. He also never said yes. My point is that not talking about it in depth leaves you in the situation you find yourself in now, unfortunately. I'm very sorry. I'm sure you'll figure it out, but the advice part to me is that this is a deal breaker. Having kids tends to be one of those things both parties need to agree on. You will resent him for not having kids, and he will resent you if you end up having kids. It's a no-win situation. I'm really sorry you're in this situation. I don't know what kind of financial situation you're in or what kind of support you have, but if I were you and it was within my means, money and support system, I would leave and have kids on my own. If it's something you've always wanted and your fertile years are ending soon, then I would assume that it would be a bigger regret not having done that than losing a man who purposefully misled me and wasted all my time when I could have found someone who wanted the same things that I do. But I know it's not easy when you love someone. OP replies, "Thank you for saying that. This is what I think I lean towards doing. It would be really difficult financially and logistically, but it's likely the best choice." And now, onto the update. I posted on Monday about my husband telling me out of nowhere that he never wants children. I do. It's been a sad and difficult week, but I have made some decisions and taken action. First off, thanks to everyone who offered kind, supportive advice. I've come to the sad realization that I would rather live without my husband than without a child of my own. I'm taking steps to leave. I've made an appointment with an OB for a few weeks from now to discuss my fertility and options for becoming a single parent. And I'm working with a realtor to buy a house on my own. This is so exciting to me. I've been wanting to buy for ages and had too much instability to do it before now. There are a lot of little details to work out, and the actual divorce is probably a ways off. Because reasons, none of your business. But in spite of the deep sadness I feel, I think I'm making the right decision. The two friends I've told have been completely supportive and think I'm doing the right thing. Even my husband thinks I'm doing the right thing, although it's clear he's in a lot of pain. He's even offered to help me buy a new bed and things when I move out, because it's too hard to get hours out of our current rental. So I'm sad, but moving forward with hope. Finally, to everyone who said I'm too old to have kids, go F yourself. In the comments, do not buy a house until you are separated and keep proof of your separation or your husband will be entitled to 50% of your house. OP says, "Thanks for this advice. I've talked it over with the mortgage lady. I don't know what's her proper title. I'm totally new to this whole thing, and she has some paperwork to sign and notarize that says he won't claim half the house. So I'm pretty sure we're covered there. He says he's more than willing to do that. Talk to a lawyer. You want to make 100% sure you are covered. I'm really happy for you both. You are both making the right decisions for yourselves. Kids are not something people should have or not have for their partner's sake, which is what I get the impression happens a lot. Good luck. 37 isn't too old to have kids. My mom had me when she was 38. Don't listen to the haters, and I pray you have a baby soon. I gave birth to my second child literally 10 months ago, and I turned 40 today. It's not too late." And OP says, "Hooray, congratulations." I'm so sad for the both of them, but children are a clear 2 yes, 1 no kind of issue, and it doesn't sound like there is any room for negotiation. That's probably a good thing. No one wants to make a spouse feel pressured into a life-altering decision, the consequences of which will be with you forever. Wishing both the OP and her soon-to-be ex strength, an excellent support network, and really fulfilling relationships in their future. As someone who really wants kids, this is my fear. I have all the respect in the world for child-free people, but I'm very upfront with my partner that if he doesn't want them, please let me know so we can go our separate ways. If I was lied to and let on for so long, I'd be furious and heartbroken. Our next post is titled, "How to Give a Big Gift Without Making It Weird." My coworker recently lost his car. I don't know the details, probably broke down or something. He had to cancel his own wedding for his son's funeral last weekend. He's in a really shitty spot. I don't think this guy is one of those make someone feel sorry in order to take advantage of them types, so I was already kinda half-assed looking around at newer cars, waiting for a deal for a few months now, but not needing one ASAP. When I heard this guy was Ubering to and from work every day, I was like, holy crap, I'll just go ahead and pull the trigger on a new to me car and give him my old car. I have decided that I'm going to do it, but I have no idea how to do it. I want to preserve his dignity, so I'm not going to make a big show of it. In fact, I really don't like the fact that our coworkers will figure it out when they see him driving my car. I don't feel like I'm doing it for self-aggrandizement. Everything just happened to line up where I can really help this guy. I would have donated it to NPR because I wouldn't get much in trade and don't want to hassle with selling. How should I approach this? What is the most graceful way to give this to him and refuse payment if he offers it and not let it be weird? I mean, I know I can only control my side of things, but if there are some things that I can say or do that would make it easier, I'd appreciate some insight. In my mind, I was thinking of inviting him into an empty office and just being like, look dude, I want you to have this. But then what? What if I offend him? What if he refuses to take it and continues to Uber into work? What if he gets weird afterwards? My boyfriend said that I should offer to sell it to him for a super low price so it doesn't feel like charity, but I feel kinda tacky being like, hey, I know you have all this crap going on, but if you give me $500, I'll give you my car. Nah, that won't work for me. Maybe I could offer to sell, but be super insistent that I will never ask when he will pay me, and he can get it back to me whenever he wants, $5 at a time if he needs to, but really I'm not trying to make any money off this. I just want to help my colleague. He's kind, warm, and hardworking, and he's dealing with a bunch of crap. A big steaming pile of crap. I can't sit here knowing I can help him and just shake him down or do nothing. How do I even remotely handle this? In the comments, maybe you can offer to let him repay you for the car if he refuses it as a gift. Something like, I'm in the position where I don't need my older vehicle anymore, I'd like you to have it. You don't owe me anything. If he says he can't do that, offer to let him pay you back for the car in no time frame, a very small amount. Like half or a fourth of a blue book value, downplay its value hard, and stress that he does not owe you anything. Alternatively, he can pay you back in other ways. Maybe he has a skill that he enjoys sharing. Some people just can't accept not earning things. OP replies, yeah, I was kind of thinking something like that. It's an 08 Elantra and in perfect condition. I think I could get $1,200 for it, but in the condition now, I wouldn't feel right asking for more than like $800 or $900. There's nothing mechanically wrong with it. I've put quite a bit of money into it very recently. New tires are less than a year old. Shocks, struts, minor transmission maintenance, etc. I don't feel like it would be right to try to make that money back because I derived value from the repairs that I made and don't consider the money wasted. Maybe enough to pay my boyfriend back for the full-size spare since I specifically asked for that last Christmas and never needed it. And it won't fit on my new car, or I wouldn't have even thought about giving it away. Carvana offered $98 for it, lol. Yeah, tell him it's beat up, but it runs, and it's not worth your time to sell to Carvana for $98. Downplay it if you want him to feel guilt-free. OP says, that's actually not a bad idea. Although don't downplay it too much, because then it sounds like you're dumping a lemon on him. Downplay the necessity, not the value. OP replies, that is definitely a consideration. I love my car, it's great. I've never complained about it because frankly, there has never been a reason to. I definitely won't push too hard on the piece of junk aspect because I genuinely don't feel that way. I'd make sure that I had all the transfer papers with me and like you said, take him into an empty office and just be sincere. I'd also mention when the other colleagues notice him driving your old car that both he and you say you sold it to him. No one needs to know that it was for free or super cheap. You can't afford to give all your workmates cheap cars. OP says, excellent advice. I didn't think of that. And now, onto the update. So I showed up right as he was walking across the lot to his truck to leave for the week. I ran up and was like, hey, how are you holding up? He sighed heavily and said, "I'm getting through it because I must get through it." I asked, "Have you come to a solution for your car problem?" And he sighed again and said, "Yes, the solution is that I must have one and can't afford another." We were about 20 yards away from employee parking and could see both my cars. So I said, "Well, this weekend I bought that car," pointed at new car, "and so now I would like you to have that one," pointed old car. He was absolutely speechless. So I kinda started talking fast and was like, "I couldn't find the title. It's in my closet somewhere, but I have all the necessary paperwork you need to bring to the Iowa DOT to transfer it into your name. I'll pay for a replacement title if I can't find it, and it's overdue for an oil change, so I'll get that done this week while you're out too. I'll leave the keys on my desk so you have them if you get back after I leave on Friday." I attempt to look in his eyes, but his mask has fogged his glasses. I continue. "Yeah, they only offered me $98 for the car, and I didn't think it was worth it, and I didn't really want to hassle with selling it online. Also, I don't have space at home to keep it, so I thought to myself, why not let coworker have it, so here we are." He has begun shaking. It's 15 degrees, so I'm getting pretty cold at this point, and I start hopping a little. "So, would you take my car, please?" I ask, by way of concluding the offer and requesting some kind of feedback. Immediately, he grabbed me around the shoulders and pulled me in for a long, strong hug. He is openly weeping into my hair now. He's saying something, but my scarf is muffling his words. But I let him hang on until he decides to pull back. Finally, he removed his glasses, and he looked me in the eyes and said, "You have changed my life with this gift. I cannot describe what you have given me." So of course I started crying and we hugged again. Then he said I must be freezing and I am going to go into the office immediately, so I did. He sat out in his truck for a while before finally leaving for the week, and I feel content that he did not insist on haggling over money. Perhaps if he decides later on to bring it up, I'll entertain what he has to say. But for now, I am well satisfied with how this turned out. Now I just have to find that damn title. I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart to each and every one of you who read this and who took the time to reply. As it turns out, I was totally overthinking how this was going to go. In the comments, "This is the food my soul needed this morning. Thank you for posting." "Lost car. Sad. Must be tough to get around. Had to cancel his wedding. Ouch. That must have been hard to do. His son's funeral? Damn. F me, but I'm really counting my blessings after reading such a horrific sentence. It's less terrible, but my cousin committed suicide a month after I got married. I love my husband and I love being married to him, but that kind of crap also screws up how you feel about it all. I definitely had a period where I wondered if I was being punished for being happy. Not logical, but that's how it goes. OP's coworker is likely dealing with a much stronger version of what I went through. I can somewhat relate. My wedding had that bittersweet feel to it too. My dad was severely disabled, paralyzed below the chin plus some breathing equipment, and I live abroad. When I got engaged, I was set on getting married in my home country because I knew my dad would probably never be able to travel and I wanted him to drive me down the aisle. My parents were so thrilled when I told them we were having the wedding just an hour away from them. It meant the world to them. We planned the wedding for over a year, found an accessible venue, were fully prepared, when my dad got COVID. His paralysis was caused by an autoimmune disease, so he was on constant immunosuppressants, and taking him off them would risk him getting even worse. So he was very vulnerable to any virus. COVID killed him 4 months before the wedding. We had the venue picked, everything set in stone, so we went ahead and got married in the country as we had planned. The happiest day of my life, but it felt very bittersweet, and I still struggle to explain why we got married abroad when people ask. Stupid, stupid life. Does not care about us at all. I think it's nice that your wedding still honored him in a way, but I'm also sorry some of the joy got taken out. OP also says, "Hey guys, just wanted to give another update. Holy cow, love you all so much. Coworker is in fact a truck driver for my company, and he may not take his work vehicle home because it's huge. The funeral was in Africa, which, in the dark COVID times, meant a lot of time quarantining and a huge expense up front. He's still driving the car. We consider each other friends and have supported each other unreservedly since I posted my story almost 2 years ago. Thanks for the interest, everyone. Seriously, so glad to be here. You're a great person. OP replies, I may be naive, but I firmly believe we get out of this world what we put into it. I've needed some warm fuzzies lately, and reading these comments brought all the warmth and brother love back that I have been missing. Thanks for reading and putting some warm vibes out into the world too.